with Dan Tortora on site, on location here inside of Cafe Kubal. Happy to be here with you inside of the newest location of Cafe Kubal, right here at Sweetheart Corners, a corner of Route 11 and Taft Road, right here in North Syracuse. We were here for the grand opening featuring The Grind with Grimes, Mary Grimes joining us, the new head coach from LeMoyne. And for the women's basketball team, coming back, was an assistant coach there and decided to come back to the program after Gina Castelli, her former coach that had brought her in and former coach that had recruited her and had her play at Siena. After she finished up recently here at LeMoyne, Mary Grimes decided to come in, and she was with us here at Cafe Kubal having some fun just a couple days ago. And now we'll be back here with more from LeMoyne as Bob Beretta, the new director of athletics, will be joining us in hour number 2 here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. And in hour number 1, I have the pleasure and the honor to speak on my picks that I had here in college football as well as the NFL, and just how bad some of them were, but the fact that there was a lot of upsets in week number 1. So a lot of great stuff coming up here where sports meets life. Once again, Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the newest location of Cafe Kubal, right here on the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road, North Syracuse, and the first ever drive-through, which I use very frequently, so I appreciate being here. And I have my pumpkin spice chai this morning, of course, because it's to me it's always in season, but it's in season right now. So come out here and hang out with us at Cafe Kubal all throughout the week, and of course, come and see us this morning. Like I said, Bob will be joining me in hour number 2. And in hour number 1, we're going to go down my picks and take a look at this. And so I did, I don't hide my picks. I do post them right away and give you an opportunity to see them. Because some people, obviously they'll tell you who they picked, and maybe they'll change it or maybe they won't talk about it. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong is how I look at it here. So looking at the scores from the first week of the NFL. Now, obviously, I went with the Tampa Bay Bucks in the first game of the season, the Thursday night game. Went with Tampa in that game. Wanted to see Dallas gut it out. I really wanted to. Growing up, big fan of Dallas as a kid, and I knew the whole team back then. I mean, Larry Brown, Russell Maryland, Nate Newton, Troy Aikman, Elvin Harper, Jay Novacek, Daryl Moose Johnson, who obviously played at Syracuse, and his helmet is actually in the Cafe Kubal studios that we have for Wake Up Call all throughout the week from Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So you can actually see it right behind me. If you ever see that helmet and you wonder who signed it, it's Daryl Moose Johnson, and so he played for the Cowboys as well. Emmitt Smith, of course, Michael Irvin. A lot of great players through the history of the Deion Sanders of the Dallas Cowboys. So grew up liking them, watching them, and wanted to see them win this game as it was Dak's first game back in a year. And for those of you that don't know, Dak Prescott, and I'm not sure if he still does this, but his mother had passed away. And before a game, he would send her a text message and just never hit send. It was kind of a beautiful tribute to his mom that he would do this. He would always make sure to send out a message to his mom right before the game, say something to her when he was at Mississippi State, and never hit send. Just to know that she's there, he's thinking of her, and he believes that she's somewhere watching. So the Dak Prescott story is a lot more than simply just football, and it's tough. It's tough to see what he's been through, what he's had to go through, and to get to where he is today. However, he's got a new contract with the Dallas Cowboys. They actually decided to finally pay him, which I'm happy about, and giving him an opportunity to get out there and do his thing. So very much looking forward to what's coming up, but they did fall short. They lost the game 31-29 in this matchup, and losing that game to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tom Brady made a bunch of mistakes in this game, and he was able to do it here. Now, what did Greg say? Pleased to see that Jameis Winston is an early front-runner for NFL MVP. So we'll talk about that in a second, Greg, and definitely on Thursday with Papa Joe, because he loves talking about famous Jameis. Or as my one buddy Brendan Murphy calls him, crab legs, because of what he may or may not have taken from Publix down in Tallahassee, which I went to that Publix and actually shopped there and I bought some Coke Zero, took a picture with it, and said it, between Jameis and I, at least one of us paid for something here. So Jameis Winston, we'll get to him in a little bit. But yeah, the Bucs getting a victory in the first game of the NFL season. And was it or was it not pass interference is the question here. Offensive pass interference on Mike Evans in order to break open that had the play that created the opportunity for them to win the game on a field goal. So, I kind of leave that up to you what your thoughts are, but it looked like it was offensive pass interference, and as it stands right now, the Bucs are 1-0, and they got the help that they needed. I don't like seeing refs get involved in games to a point where they have that much to do with the ending of a game or the outcome of a game, but nevertheless, this is where we are, and it's unfortunate, but Tom Brady is Tom Brady, and the Cowboys made a lot of mistakes, and that's something that I do agree with the people that, have written in or talked with me about on the show, is the fact that, okay, was that offensive pass interference? Arguably, yes. But at the same time, the Cowboys kicker, Greg Zuerlein, missed 2 field goals and an extra point, and if you add those all up and play the home game, that is 7 points, which is a touchdown, which means the Cowboys would have won the game if not for those blunders. So there is something to be said about that. And, there is an argument that if the Cowboys didn't make early mistakes, they wouldn't have had to worry about whether or not the refs were helping out at the end of the game. So, there is some truth to that, and that is a frustration. And I totally understand, people bringing up that point because it's a good point. Greg Zuerlein should not be missing those, especially when that man is not only clutch, but he's usually clutch from like 60 yards away. So to miss a 31-yarder, and that's his first attempt of the season, was unacceptable. So I think a lot of kickers would lose their jobs off of something like that. So just something to note here. But Cowboys end up winning that one, so that prediction was correct. And then my Jaguars played. And my Jaguars played the Houston Texans, and the Houston Texans being in a position where they don't have Deshaun Watson. He's healthy, but everything that's going on off the field has put them in a place where he's a healthy scratch, and they've been sitting him out here for week 1. Because the question was, this came up so many months ago, and he hasn't been charged with anything. He hasn't been fined by the NFL. So the question of, is he playing, is he not playing, should he play, should he not play? And they end up starting Tyrod Taylor, who they picked up in the offseason, who was a Charger last year. So they pick him up, they give him an opportunity to be a part of this team, and Tyrod Taylor comes out yesterday and plays out of his mind against the Jaguars at home for Houston, which is exactly what you don't want to see if you're a Jaguars fan, and that led to a loss for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence's first game as a professional football player ends in a loss. And now here the second game goes, as we step forward here, first game as a pro, they end up losing, and it's the first loss ever for Urban Meyer as a pro football coach, as he was coaching in the college ranks. So we see Trevor Lawrence lose his first game as a professional quarterback, and Urban Meyer lose his first game as an NFL head coach. Not how you want to start off if you're Jacksonville. However, they are where they are, and there's going to be some growing pains. I firmly believe this. You got a new head coach, you got a new coaching staff in general, and you got a new quarterback, and you're trying to find your footing. So they'll have their issues, they'll have their problems, they'll find their way, and I think they'll eventually get to. I have them at 8-9 on the season. That's where I have them sitting pretty here. And then Greg said, why is Robinson not getting the ball for the Jags, especially early? And that was a great question. And I watched the game, obviously, yesterday, and that was a big question that I had on my mind as well. James Robinson was an undrafted free agent last season out of Illinois State, and he ended up becoming the Jaguars' top running back after Leonard Fournette obviously moved forward. They didn't want to keep him, and they had injuries to other players on the team and let guys go here and there. So James Robinson steps up, and thank goodness they gave him a shot as an undrafted free agent, and he ends up becoming the starter, gets over 1,000 yards, and toward the end of the season could have actually broken the franchise record that is held by obviously the Fred Taylors of the world. Fred Taylor and Leonard Fournette really being the phenoms of history, for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and Fred Taylor more than anybody else. And so we look at where they stand right now. That was almost broken by James Robinson. So an undrafted rookie almost broke the record of a Florida Gator in Fred Taylor. And it would have been beautiful to see, but, he got hurt, and then they kind of winded him down toward the end of last season. They'd only won one game, so obviously you don't want to chance too much and put yourselves in too difficult of a situation. You don't want to lose a running back when your team's already lost their season and you're going to get the number one pick. So I understand them, tailoring him down, so to speak. But to tailor him down in week 1 was ridiculous. And if I go back and look at the numbers that he had this week for the Jacksonville Jaguars, it really was a quiet day, and they didn't give him a lot of opportunities. Looking back at it, he only carried the ball 5 times in the game, and he averaged 5 yards a carry, 5 times for 25 yards. Carlos Hyde, who they brought back to the team that was there with Doug Marrone, brought him back for a chance with Urban Meyer. For whatever reason, Urban, I guess, wanted to give him a shot here. 9 carries for 44 yards, 4.9 yards a carry. As a team, they carried the ball 16 times for 76 yards because Trevor Lawrence lost a couple yards on a sack. Laviska Shenault carried the ball 1 time for 9 yards. So the team averaged almost 5 yards a carry. But to think that as a team they ran the ball 16 times is ridiculous. And, people saying, well, they had to play from behind. They got down 27-7 at halftime, so you had to throw the ball. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think when you have a running back like James Robinson, you run the ball. And I think in the whole first half, you didn't run it enough. If he carried 5 times in 60 minutes, that's not enough. So down 27-7, you could have still run the ball. Third quarter, could have still run the ball. I understand throwing it in the fourth quarter if you're down by 20, and maybe toward the end of the third. But to throw, you have a rookie quarterback throwing the ball 51 times, and you anticipate to win. That's not going to happen. Trevor had 3 touchdowns. He also had 3 interceptions. The offensive line only allowed 1 sack, and that's credit to Trevor Lawrence because he got hurried out of the pocket a bunch of times. But he was only taken down 1 time and threw for 319 yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 picks in the game. Not horrible numbers to have the 3 touchdowns. You expect him to throw an interception or 2 because he's a rookie quarterback. But to have him throw 51 times and the team only runs 16 times is way too lopsided. You can say what you want about playing down. That didn't need to happen in the first half, that they weren't running the ball that much. And in the second half, they could have opened up the third quarter running it a little bit there. And James Robinson running 5 times for you is a disgrace. So the fact that they lost, I'm not surprised. Would they have still lost even if he did run the ball? Potentially. But they could have, given it a good old college try, in my opinion, if they had given him the chance to do this. So outside of that, my pick was for Jacksonville. They did not win. So Tampa got it. Jacksonville did not. So I was 1-1 on that. And then I picked the Philadelphia Eagles to go into Atlanta, the battle of the nest, Eagles versus Falcons. And I picked Philly to defeat Atlanta, and they did exactly that, which I thought was tremendous. This game blew up 32-6. Jalen Hurts doing his thing. Young-Ho Koo had the first score of the game, one of the greatest names ever in the history of professional football, Young-Ho Koo for the Atlanta Falcons, their kicker. Devontae Smith has the first touchdown for the Philadelphia Eagles this season after being a rookie wide receiver chosen in the 2021 NFL Draft and to be the Heisman Trophy reigning victor. So Devontae Smith getting the first touchdown for Philadelphia. Really awesome there. Congratulations to him. Dallas Goedert, who I have on a couple of my teams, he got a touchdown. Kenneth Gainwell, who comes to you from the Memphis Tigers, one of the many, I think there's 5 Memphis running backs that are currently in the NFL. All coming from the Mike Norvell era. And Kenneth Gainwell scoring in his first ever game in the NFL. And then Jalen Reagor, their wide receiver that they drafted early last year in the draft, he had a touchdown. So a bunch of young guys scoring for Philadelphia. I love seeing that. I love the fact that Jalen Hurts came out striking early on. Love seeing the fact that he got it done. And not only that he got it done, but that the rookies were getting on the board. That Devontae Smith is the first touchdown for Philadelphia for the entire season and first score overall, because the first thing they had was a touchdown, didn't have a field goal. So to know that Devontae Smith, the reigning Heisman Trophy winner coming out of Alabama, has the first score ever for Philadelphia in the 2021 season as a rookie. That'll go down in history for him and for the Eagles. And then to see the Kenneth Gainwell scoring as a rookie as well out of Memphis was huge. And like I said, Jalen Rieger as well. Those are the three scores for you touchdown-wise as the team wins 32-6. And by the numbers, Jalen Hurts looking good, 27 of 35, 264 yards and 3 touchdowns in the game. Dallas Goedert getting involved as well as this fly is getting heavily involved with me over here. So, I don't know what it is. People say it's cologne, but I have no idea what the heck it is. The bees like me, the flies like me, and I like that they stay away from me. Pittsburgh, I got to talk about this game. Let's get it done early because I know fans are going to be pissed about this. Josh Allen also threw 51 times, just like Trevor Lawrence. He was 30 of 51. So almost like Trevor. Trevor was 28 of 51, so close numbers here. Trevor threw for more yards, though. Josh Allen, 270 yards passing, only 1 touchdown. Trevor Lawrence had 3. So Josh Allen losing in this game at home to Pittsburgh, and an older Big Ben who people are wondering when is the clock going to run out on Big Ben. 23-16. The Steelers win this game. Steelers did some good things here. Gabriel Davis scored the first touchdown of the season. I told everybody, if you're thinking that Cole Beasley or you're thinking Emmanuel Sanders, no. Gabriel Davis is the number 2 wide receiver for the Buffalo Bills, right behind Stephon Diggs. He's the first person to get a touchdown this season for Buffalo, coming out of UCF, where I covered him there. And the second score for the team overall as Tyler Bass scored the first points for Buffalo this season on a field goal from 37 away. And then Boswell kicked 2 field goals. It was 10-6 at the end of the third quarter. Buffalo led through 3 quarters, and then it just opened up for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I knew that when I sat Deontay Johnson, who's a young receiver there for the Pittsburgh Steelers, I knew when I sat him he was going to score, and he did, and he was the one that gave Pittsburgh their first lead of the game on a 5-yard pass from Big Ben, made it 13-10, and then Ulysses Gilbert, the third, had a 9-yard return off of a blocked punt. Special teams getting involved for Pittsburgh. So that's the second time special teams reared their ugly head against a team based in upstate New York this weekend. Syracuse had a blocked punt when they played up against Rutgers on Saturday, and on Sunday, Buffalo's punt was blocked by Ulysses Gilbert III of Pittsburgh. However, he ran this one back for a score, and then the game was just trading field goals as Buffalo ran out of time with 46 seconds left. Lost the game 23-16, tried the onside kick, and it didn't work. So Buffalo not looking that pretty to open it up. I'm happy that Gabriel Davis got into the end zone. Deontay Johnson, I will know well enough to not sit you. When you go to move somebody and you have that first feeling of, if I sit them, they're probably going to score, don't do it. Always trust your gut, trust what your brain's telling you, and go with it, as both teams in upstate New York take an L to start off the season. We're going to take a step aside for a fast break to start off this week. We are live on site on location at Cafe Kubal, Sweetheart Corner. Just had their grand opening on Saturday, and we were here with Mary Grimes of LeMoyne. We'll be here in hour number 2 with Bob Beretta of LeMoyne, the new director of athletics, but not before we go through college football and the NFL to start off your week of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora right here on site on location at Cafe Kubal on the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road in North Syracuse, Sweetheart Corner. So we'll be back right after this fast break, and of course, always appreciate you being here.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
Cafe Kubal offers same-day local delivery of our products, offering no delivery charge for Onondaga County. Shop cafekubal.com for fresh roasted coffee beans, cold brew, travel mugs, and all your essential Cafe Kubal needs. Cafe Kubal, coffee for the soul.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant.
Back here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, on site on location at Cafe Kubal inside of their Sweetheart Corner location. Just had their grand opening this past weekend, and we were here with Mary Grimes of LeMoyne, the new head coach who was an assistant coach under Gina Castelli here at LeMoyne just a little bit ago, and we had her here, and very happy to tell you that you can go and find that by going to facebook.com/wakeupcalldt, where you are right now. You can go back and watch our show with Mary Grimes, and of course you can watch it on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. Speaking of LeMoyne, Bob Beretta, the director of athletics, will be joining us in hour number 2 here from Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora between 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. Eastern Time at Cafe Kubal inside of their Sweetheart Corner location on the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road in North Syracuse. And before that, going through the NFL picks here in Cincinnati and Minnesota, first game of this, and I believe Minnesota did this last year or the year before, that they went into overtime in week 1. But Minnesota and Cincinnati, I said that this game would be close. I have to go back and check the tape from Wednesday. I believe I said that this game could go either way, would be close, and that I thought it could go into overtime. And so I definitely know that I had made note of the fact that I thought this game would be close. Cincinnati wins at home 27-24. I picked Cincinnati in this game. Adam Thielen, the first to score any points for Minnesota this year off a touchdown from Kirk Cousins, a 5-yard pass. Joe Burrow coming back from being injured last year. T. Higgins gets his first touchdown of the season. The first score is from Burrow to T. Higgins, and that is a 2-yard pass. Jamar Chase, who reunited with his quarterback Joe Burrow, and Jamar Chase were both at LSU together, won a championship together. They drafted Jamar Chase, and it took him only the first half to link up again, as Chase was found from Burrow for a 50-yard touchdown pass play that made it 14-7 going into halftime for Cincinnati. Joe Mixon got involved. Thielen had 2 touchdowns in the game. Nothing for Justin Jefferson as far as scoring. And Dalvin Cook had a 1-yard touchdown run. And then to end time, Greg Joseph of Minnesota had a 53-yard field goal that forced overtime. And then Evan McPherson, who is like the favorite kicker of Brendan Murphy, who is joining me for an all-new series as a spin-off of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora and a product of Dan Tortora Broadcast Media called Designated Diamonds, where we talk strictly baseball. And that'll premiere this Tuesday at 8 p.m., this Tuesday, September 14th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here where you are on Facebook.com/WakeUpCallDT, as well as on YouTube.com/WakeUpCallDT. So make sure that you look out for Brendan and I. He is a fan of Evan McPherson, and McPherson, he's got a lot of Cincinnati fans as they win the game in overtime based off of his field goal. So I got that one right. So now we're 2 for 2 in my predictions here. And then this game got well out of hand. San Francisco on the road at Detroit. And San Francisco at one point was up 38-10. 38-10 in the third quarter off a touchdown from Deebo Samuel. And then DeAndre Swift got involved. Jamal Williams and Quintez Cephas made this game a game up 38-10. The game would end with the Detroit Lions on a 23-3 run at home. If you're San Francisco, this is disgraceful to your defense to allow a 23-3 finish as the Lions, which it looked like a bold pick for me and a ballsy pick, ended up being pretty close here. They only lost by a touchdown and a 2-point conversion, 41-33. So that prediction did not go my way. That gives me 2-3 as we go through this. Trey Lance did start things off here. So the question was, what were we going to see? We ended up seeing both quarterbacks. Trey Lance got the first touchdown of the season for San Francisco when he found Trent Sherfield on a 5-yard pass. And then later on in the game, Jimmy Garoppolo got involved. Deebo Samuel's 79-yard touchdown pass from Jimmy G. So we saw both quarterbacks in this game, and the question is what's it going to look like from here? Garoppolo has been the starter, and he was 17-25, 314 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks. Trey Lance in this game, 1 of 1, only attempted 1 pass, and it was a touchdown pass. So the question is, where do we go from here, and how should they go from here? How should they move forward? As we saw just a little bit of Trey Lance in this matchup. You know, San Francisco quarterback connected on that one pass play to take a 7-0 lead. He's the first rookie to throw a touchdown on his first pass attempt in week 1 of the NFL season since Atlanta's Matt Ryan did it against Detroit in 2008. He also became the first ever San Francisco 49er rookie to throw for a score in a season opening game since the team joined the NFL in 1950. So kind of interesting that they did that, you know, that they have Jimmy G still as their starter as far as looking at overall body of play, like Jim Boeheim said. When someone said, why do you bring Deion Waiters off the bench? You know, he's a starter. And he said, look at his minutes. He's playing 23 minutes a game, 30 minutes a game. He is my starter. It's based on how many minutes they're out there. And Jimmy Garoppolo was out there the majority of the minutes. And Trey Lance came out in the beginning. Kind of a nice way to boost up your fan base, a way to get your fans excited, that you come out with Trey Lance. He attempts 1 pass, throws a touchdown, so he's perfect on the season so far. And you look like you're right because everybody's all hype about him right now. And coming out of North Dakota State playing for a season, Trey Lance winning, you know, when he was at North Dakota State, and then seeing what he does on this first pass attempt after you traded up from 12-3 to get him. It's a really, really good PR move to say, here's Jimmy G, and we won week 1, but Trey Lance came in, and look at what he did. Threw a touchdown pass, 100% effective. And the fans got to see him in the first game of the season, and he got to make history for the Niners, and he got to make history for the NFL for the first time since 2008, a quarterback throwing a touchdown on their first pass in their first game. Matt Ryan doing that back against Detroit, and ironically, Trey Lance doing it against Detroit. So Detroit on the wrong side of history twice here as we take a look at this with Matt Ryan doing it and then Trey Lance doing it after here. To have a touchdown on your first pass attempt ever in the NFL. So congratulations to Trey Lance and congratulations to the Niners. They had me wrong on that one, which left me 2 of 3. 2 for 4 my picks are, as I did not anticipate Arizona going into Tennessee and blowing them out. They won by 25 points in this. I thought this would be a more evenly matched game. Kyler Murray got me 5 touchdowns, though. Shout out to him. Matt Prater gets the first score for Arizona this season. Matt Prater, you know him for being the Denver Broncos kicker for about 115 years. He's still in the NFL. 34-yard field goal. DeAndre Hopkins scored back-to-back touchdowns to give them a 17-0 lead. Kyler Murray had a run later on. And then Christian Kirk, who is playing for his job, I think, is fair to say, in Arizona, he ends up getting 2 touchdowns to end the game back-to-back, about 7 minutes and some change apart, 10:40 and 3:06 in the third quarter. Nobody scored in the fourth quarter in this game. Arizona shut them down. And so Christian Kirk, great to see him do that. I'm sure there's some people wanting to go pick him up in free agency because you probably did not draft him. And for him to have 2 touchdowns, I temper your expectations. He hasn't been a consistent wide receiver, but maybe someday he will be. And if that does happen, then you could be one of the first to get after him. I want to give some love to Zaven Collins, who comes from Tulsa, where I covered him with the Tulsa Golden Hurricane over the years as I covered the American Athletic Conference very closely. And Zaven Collins played as a rookie in his first game, had 2 total tackles, both solo in this game. I want to shout him out. And I also want to shout out former Syracuse defensive lineman Chandler Jones, who had 5 sacks in this game. Chandler has been in the NFL for a very long time. He's 31 years old, and coming out of Syracuse, this man has won a Super Bowl. He knows what it's like to be on the highest caliber of teams, and to be 31 in the NFL, to be in your 30s in the NFL is a great thing, because quarterbacks can usually get there, but as a defensive lineman / linebacker, I want to shout him out for 5. Some teams don't have 5 sacks in a year as a team. He had 5 in one game to start off the season. So let the MVP candidacy flow from the Chandler Jones conversation. James Conner, the question was, with James Conner leaving Pittsburgh, who didn't want him, apparently, and he signed a $1 million contract for 1 year with Arizona. The question was, who's this starting running back, Chase Edmonds or James Conner? I think that's something they're going to figure out as the season goes on. And if you see by the numbers here, they were close. Conner 16 carries, Edmonds 12. Conner had 53 yards on 16 carries for 3.3 yards a carry, and Chase Edmonds 12 carries, went 63 yards for 5.3 yards a carry. Neither one of them scored a rushing touchdown in the game, but both were utilized, just to make a note of that for you fantasy football owners. And do want to make a note that when you are planning out your fantasy football week, that we get it to you on Wednesday, so you have plenty of time for your Thursday, sometimes Saturday, Sunday, and Monday picks for the NFL. So make sure that you tune in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora's Hour 2 every Wednesday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time, where we bring you the Fantasy Football Power Hour, not one of, not a, but the Fantasy Football Power Hour. And you can check us out there on Facebook.com/WakeUpCallDT, MixLR.com/WakeUpCallDT, where you're listening, as well as on YouTube.com/WakeUpCallDT, and on the WakeUpCallDT.com homepage. So make sure you check us out there. With my partner, Mike Sofka, my fantasy football partner for years, we bring you fantasy football advice for every game, every team, and we predict the winners of each game every Wednesday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub. So don't miss a second of the Fantasy Football Power Hour coming up this Wednesday. So my picks so far, Tampa was correct, Philly was correct, Cincinnati was correct. So that gave me 3 wins. And then I was only giving myself 2, but my apologies to myself on that. So 3-1, 3-2, 3. So I'm 3-3, and I picked Jacksonville. So 3-4. Seattle puts me back even at 4-4 as I picked them over Indianapolis on the road. Russell Wilson went to town. The team had 4 touchdowns in the game. Tyler Lockett got it. Gerald Everett, since leaving the Rams in the same division of the NFC West, to go to Seattle and not have to share time, which is great for fantasy owners, to not have to share time there, to have an opportunity in Seattle instead of having to split with Tyler Higbee. Big ups to Gerald Everett, who got a 9-yard touchdown pass from Russ the Bus. And then we saw Zach Pascal, a 10-yard pass from Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz played in the game. Some people worried, were we going to see Carson Wentz? He's kind of a ghost when it comes to the NFL. Thank God we have seen him. And Zach Pascal had 2 touchdown catches. The only scores touchdown-wise in the game for Indy came from Zach Pascal. You got another guy who you probably didn't draft and maybe didn't even know his name. Carson Wentz, 2 touchdowns in his opener as a Colt, but they lose. Tyler Lockett gets 2 touchdowns. Gerald Everett gets involved, and DK Metcalf. So if you had anybody on there, you were doing okay in the world of Seattle, who won 28-16, and they get me back even with a record of 4-4. And Greg just mentioning here that Jones went off for him and did well. So to take a look at that, Julio, are you talking about Julio? So Jones was an absolute beast yesterday. I don't know if he's looking at Julio here on that. Julio had a few catches in it, and that was it. So he said was an absolute beast yesterday. Maybe he's speaking of another team here. But as we look at that, we have 4-4 for my record. And then I went with the Chargers on the road against Washington. Oh, Chandler Jones. Okay, yeah, I was going to say. Not Julio. We were talking about Arizona and I want to make sure I didn't miss anything on Julio for you, Greg. But yeah, Chandler Jones, 5 sacks. And again, this man is 31 years old, which is very young in normal life, but in the NFL, it's like being a grandfather. So great stuff to see that. And he put up UE Tiger Pride. Union Endicott is where Chandler Jones and his brother Arthur Jones came from. And I just interviewed Union Endicott down in their area at 565 Hooper Road in Enwell, New York at Progressive Dental. So great to see Chandler Jones, a Union Endicott alum of upstate New York, getting 5 sacks right after we spent this past Wednesday with the football team of Union Endicott. So shout out to that and the fact that we got to really connect that. So that's awesome. And Greg is as a Union Endicott grad, so shout out to you, Greg. A lot of pride for that as well. So great to be able to say we talked to the current football team when a former football player of Union Endicott just got 5 sacks in the NFL in a huge road win. And always great to have everybody write in and where they went to school and whatnot in our community, no matter where you are today. And of course, Greg is one of my favorite listeners of all time, so very happy to shout out the fact that he's a Union Endicott grad. So much love to you as well, and much respect. I picked the Chargers, so that puts me at 5-4 on the week. I can't pick the Washington football team because they don't have a name, and I just don't like calling them Washington. So it's very hard for me to pick them by any stretch. But Austin Eckler had the first score of the game and first score for the Chargers this season on a 3-yard run. And Logan Thomas, who is my tight end in one of my leagues, he did get a touchdown in this game. Justin Herbert only threw 1 touchdown pass. It was in the fourth quarter with 11:21 to go, but it was a difference in the game that made it 20-16. 3-yard pass to Mike Williams, which closed it out for the Chargers on the road. That East Coast, West Coast game, you always wonder who's going to show. I feel like the West Coast teams do better when the East Coast comes to visit them, and arguably they do better when they come to the East Coast. So West Coast is handling it on both ends here. 6-4, my prediction record for the NFL in Week 1, as I chose Carolina over the Jets. I'm probably not going to pick the Jets much this season, as a spoiler alert, because they're more of a Broadway show than a football team as of recent history. But Carolina, when you have 2 guys go up against a team that didn't seem to really appreciate them, speaking of wide receiver Robbie Anderson and Sam Darnold, their quarterback, you play up for these games. And Sam Darnold and Robbie not only played up for this game, they were the first touchdown connection of the season for Carolina. As Sam Darnold found Robbie Anderson, who was taken away from him last year. Robbie came to Carolina. Sam was still with the Jets. And now Sam's in Carolina with Robbie. And they're the first to link up with Robbie Anderson having his quarterback back now in Carolina. The first touchdown pass thrown by Sam Darnold as a Panther is to his former teammate Robbie Anderson for 57 yards. And then Sam Darnold ran it in before halftime, made it 16-0 against his former team, the Jets. Then Corey Davis, who came over from Tennessee and came from the Western Michigan Broncos. Shout out to Tim Lester, their head coach, who's a good friend of mine. Corey Davis gets the first touchdown for the Jets this season and first score for the Jets this season. And he does it as a first-time Jet. Makes it 16-11. And then Ryan Santoso kicked a field goal. Corey Davis got another touchdown, and it wasn't enough. 19-14. The Carolina Panthers are able to take down the Jets. Sam Darnold and Robbie Anderson get revenge. And new quarterback Zach Wilson of the Jets, who was drafted 2nd overall behind only Trevor Lawrence, drafted by the Jaguars this year. Zach Wilson ends the game with 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 20 of 37 for 258 yards. So not too shabby for a rook, and I'll give him that. We're going to take another step aside here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora and get back to more of the NFL picks. I'm happy to be 6-4 currently as we're having this conversation. Hopefully I can stay above 500 right after this. Where sports means life on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. In these unique times, there are those in our community that give us a sense of normalcy and positivity. Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville has been here for you for over 35 years and is here now. Call 315-638-1234 or order online at pizzamanbeville.com to bring those familiar tastes into your home.
And remember to come see our monthly on-site broadcasts centered around the community and our Baldwinsville Bees. Pizza Man in Baldwinsville. Any way you slice it, they are always here for you.
This is Jim Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. I kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacting the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily. We bring in local produce. We prepare to order in the kitchen. We hand bread our chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. It's different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have in any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
I'm George Townsend of Honda City with some good advice when buying a new car. The true cost of owning a new car is determined by the appraised value when you trade it. No vehicle appraises higher than a Honda. Next, look for low APRs and deep discounts. You also want low maintenance costs and great fuel economy. That's why my advice to you is to buy a new Honda. Looking pre-owned, visit our Honda Certified Used Car Center. Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard, Liverpool, or HondaCity-CNY.com.
It would be a pity if you don't shop at Honda City.
Our corporate purpose at Chick-fil-A is to glorify God by being faithful stewards of all that's entrusted to us and to positively influence all those who come in contact with Chick-fil-A. And what became increasingly clear from our success in Cicero is that people love Chick-fil-A. And also I think we recognized that, we had a great opportunity to grow the brand and grow our platform. I felt incredibly grateful when I was selected to be a Chick-fil-A operator. I think what it's meant for me, what I've come to realize on a very deep level is that this is a calling for me. It's not a career. It's not a job. The Lord called me to be a Chick-fil-A operator and to use these restaurants to glorify Him and to positively influence other people. I'm blessed. I'm very blessed.
Head to Chick-fil-A Clay on 3974 State Route 31 in Liverpool, New York.
Back here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of Cafe Kubal on the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road here, Sweetheart Corner. Grand opening was on Saturday. We got to be here with the balloons and all the festivities. Hopefully some of you got to dunk owner-operator Matt Goddard when you were here on Saturday. I want to thank the Kids Can Make a Difference Club as well for being here and building awareness for childhood cancer. They were here in the morning and really do appreciate them. Awesome kids. I mean, I don't even know how, probably like 10 or 11 years old, and the way that they spoke with adults and stopped people and asked people to donate and be a part of it. It was like dealing with many 37-year-old people. I mean, it was fantastic. So I want to shout out the parents that raised them, and I want to definitely shout out Kids Can Make a Difference Club and building awareness for childhood cancer, which is hopefully something like any cancer that we can eradicate. I think if we put more time, energy into some of this stuff than some of the other things that we do, hopefully there could be some positives that come from that. So I want to thank the kids. I want to thank you all for coming out here for the grand opening. And we're happy to be back here at Cafe Kubal. You know that Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora comes to you every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time from the Cafe Kubal studios. And you can always watch on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt, on facebook.com/wakeupcalldt, as well as on facebook.com/livenowdt. And you can listen on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt and the wakeupcalldt.com home page to that from the Cafe Kubal studios. And then once a month we come on site on location to a Cafe Kubal near you, located on 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, 401 South Salina Street, and 208 North Townsend Street, all in Syracuse, as well as inside of Galisanos Children's Hospital in downtown Syracuse. The location out in Manlius on 343 Fayette Street, the giant behemoth of a brown striped building. And of course, their newest location where we are today and where we've spent 2 of the last 3 days, which I'm very proud of, in this very, very comfortable inside of Route 11 and Taft Road here in North Syracuse. I love the chairs here. I love the whole setup. I mean, every Cafe Kubal is different, and that's what I love about it, is that if you've been to Cafe Kubal on James Street, you haven't been to the one here. So you don't know the different design, different setup. I mean, it's just a great place that you can get the coffee and the chai, the tea, the sandwiches, the breakfast, the treats that you love, but that you can experience something different in each location is really cool. So shout out to Cafe Kubal for that, and definitely Matt Goddard and the team for all that they do here. You can search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora after we go live on Stitcher, TuneIn, Podbean, iHeartRadio, Spotify, MixLR, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts, as well as YouTube. By searching Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora or Wake Up Call DT, you'll be able to find us there. So, getting back to my predictions and give you a little update is Bob Beretta, the LeMoyne College Director of Athletics, is on his way here to Cafe Kubal to join us for hour number 2. Take a look at this and say, okay, so I was 2-1, 3-1, 3-2, 3-3, 4-3, 5-3, 6-3, 6-4 at this time, and then 7-4 for Kansas City. Now, Kansas City last year got a scare from the Browns, and this time around they had to come back to beat the Browns at home in Kansas City. I did get this one right, 7-4 on this, which I like, and they started off the season being pretty ballsy, which I like. You know, Cleveland not only had the first touchdown of the game, but they went for a 2-point conversion. Nick Chubb, might just mean they don't trust their kicker too, but Nick Chubb, after seeing how Greg Zuerlein played against Dallas, maybe that made Cleveland a little bit nervous. But Nick Chubb had the first touchdown of the season for the Browns, first touchdown of this game, 4-yard touchdown run. Kareem Hunt got the 2-point conversion, so the 1-2 punch got involved on the first score of the game, which is pretty cool to see. A touchdown for Chubb, a 2-point for Kareem Hunt. And then Jarvis Landry ran it in from 5 yards away as well. He was used in kind of a wildcat, interesting form. He was actually Baker Mayfield tossing the ball in the backfield in the game as well, and he looked like he was going to pass, and he took off and ran and got face masked. And so Jarvis Landry did some good things, and it's nice to see that Cleveland's looking at some trick plays. So I like when teams jump into that. I like when they open up the playbook. It's not vanilla, and they do some cool things with it. So hopefully that's not just this week. Cleveland definitely made the game interesting. They'll lose them by 4 on the road at Arrowhead against Kansas City. Getting involved here, Nick Chubb had another touchdown later on in the game, and then Kareem Hunt got one. So Kareem got you a touchdown and a 2-point. Nick Chubb got you 2 touchdowns in the game, and Jarvis Landry scored for you. So everybody feeling good, unless you're an Odell Beckham owner in fantasy football, which I don't know why you would do that. I'm not a big fan of him in fantasy football, and I feel like he's been underwhelming. The first touchdown scored by Kansas City this season is a 5-yard run by Pat Mahomes. First score overall is by Harrison Butker, who's considered to be the #1 kicker in the country by some in fantasy football. Travis Kelce ended with 2 touchdowns on the day, and Tyreek Hill got involved. So your usual suspects of Pat Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Tyreek Hill all scored in the matchup for Kansas City, and they needed that last one from Kelce with 7:04 to go to win the game 33-29, which put me at 7-4 in my predictions. And then Miami defeated New England by 1 point. I wanted Miami to win this game, but I picked New England, so that makes me 7-5 here. Miami winning by 1 point. Mac Jones making this look like any Bill Belichick team when it comes to the Patriots, that whether it's Matt Castle or Jimmy Garoppolo or Tom Brady or now Mac Jones or Cam Newton, that he's going to keep it interesting, and he did exactly that in this matchup, losing by 1 point, but fighting all the way to the bitter end as Miami was able to hold New England scoreless for the final 10 minutes and 36 seconds after Nick Folk had a field goal in the game that made it 17-16 and got New England within 1 point. Tua Tagovailoa, he was able to get the first touchdown of the game and first touchdown of the season for Miami. Tua on a 3-yard touchdown run. And then we saw Jalen Waddle, who links up with him from his Alabama days. Jalen Waddle had a 3-yard touchdown pass from Tua. So the only 2 touchdowns of the game for Miami were from 3 yards out. Tua's run and Tua's pass to Jalen Waddle, which was the difference, 17-16 in the matchup. I'll gladly go 7-5 to see Miami beat New England to start things off. I, like many people, thought, hey, this Green Bay-New Orleans game seems great, right? You see it, it's a marquee game. You're wondering why it's not a Sunday night football or Monday night football game when you see Green Bay-New Orleans, because you're thinking Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, and then here's, Drew Brees has retired. He's now commentating, and you figure that Green Bay is going to win this game, right? Or at least the game is going to be close. Well, the game was played at TIAA Bank Field in Jacksonville, which I know very well by the grace of God. And a better part of the last 11 years have been down there covering the team for their home games, speaking of Jacksonville. Because Jacksonville was in Houston, in New Orleans having everything that's happened with Hurricane Ida, which we pray and hope for the safety, the health, and happiness and well-being of everyone affected by anything, from COVID, from cancer, AIDS, anything going on, and the common cold, as well as these storms such as Hurricane Ida, and hope that Hurricane, whatever the next one is, Charles or whoever it is, that these things stay in the water and stay away from everybody and just become nothing before they become something of a problem to anybody. So, definitely Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. I send my prayers out to everyone and all of their loved ones, and may there be no more life lost, no more homes gone or businesses gone, and may people be healthy and safe and happy today, tonight, and so on, by the grace of God. So I do want to say that prayer in the name of the Father, and the Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. So I thank you for giving me a second to say that. We welcome anybody of any background, any religion to the show, and in the same respect, I ask you to welcome me when we do take the time here, and I think it's important to say a prayer for the people down in New Orleans and in Texas and Oklahoma and in all of these places that are weathering these terrible, terrible situations, such as Hurricane Ida. And I was there for Hurricane Katrina relief in 2006. And 8 months after it happened, it looked like it had happened the day before. So I just hope everybody stays safe, and hopefully we don't have to deal with any more storms taking any more lives or anything else from these people. I'm happy that TIAA Bank Field in Jacksonville were open to do this and to helping out so that New Orleans and Green Bay could play the game and give their fans something to look at. So that was good to see as well. What wasn't good to see for the Green Bay fans is how terrible they played, losing by 35 points in this game, which is supposed to be a home game for New Orleans, and technically they stayed in the South, so call it a home game. In this matchup, the first score of anyone came from Eldrick Rosas, the kicker for New Orleans, 44-yard field goal. Camaro was the first touchdown. It was from a 3-yard pass from Jameis Winston, starting his first game of this season and coming out here for these New Orleans Saints. So a shout out to him for that. Mason Crosby was able to get a field goal in the second quarter after Juwan Johnson had a 1-yard pass from Jameis Winston. And then Chris Hogan, who used to be a Washington football team member, Hogan caught a pass from Jameis Winston. Juwan Johnson caught a pass from Jameis Winston again, and Deontay Harris. So basically a bunch of no-names here, not household names. Juwan Johnson and Deontay Harris, I'm sure, and Chris Hogan, I'm sure people are going out and grabbing them right now. Pardon me, Hogan played for the New England Patriots. So he might have also played for Washington, but I know he played for New England. So Harris, Johnson, and Hogan all catching touchdown passes from Jameis in this game as Jameis Winston went off, even though they were displaced and not in New Orleans for this home game. He went in this matchup he only attempted 20 passes, mind you. He threw 5 touchdown passes and only attempted 20. So 5 of his 14 passes were touchdowns. Huge to say. Taysom Hill only attempted 1 pass, had a completion for 3 yards. Kamara led the team with 83 yards on the ground, 20 carries. And then Tony Jones Jr., the new backup running back with Latavius Murray gone, 11 carries for 50 yards. And Deontay Harris led the team with 72 yards on 2 catches and a touchdown. Juwan Johnson, two touchdowns on 3 catches. Targeted 3 times, caught all 3. 2 of them were touchdowns. And new tight end Adam Trotman, 3 catches for 18 yards. He was targeted the most by Winston, targeted 6 times. Marquez Callaway, who some people drafted if they drafted anybody besides Michael Thomas from New Orleans receiving corps, he had 1 catch for 14 yards. So big shout out to Harris and Johnson who came to play in this matchup. And Jameis Winston, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions, 14 completions on 20 attempts. 5 touchdowns on 20 attempts. That means that a quarter of the time that he threw the ball, he was throwing a touchdown pass. Definitely not what you anticipate from a guy that throws a bunch of picks. So shout out to famous Jameis. That leaves me at 7-6. And then I get to 8-6 in my predictions when Denver takes down the Giants on the road. Very hard for me to pick Denver, but easy when they play a team that's from East Rutherford, New Jersey, like the Jets and the Giants. And so if you're seeing me swipe away, it's because this fly just loves me way too much right now. Sterling Shepard, the first touchdown of the game for either team and first score for the Giants this season. 100 years old. He gets a pass from Daniel Jones, 37 yards to the house for Sterling Shepard. Tim Patrick, the first touchdown for Teddy Bridgewater as a Denver Bronco, but not the first score of the game. Brandon McManus had that. First score came in the second quarter for either team when McManus converted from 23 yards away for a field goal to make it 3-0. And then Albert Agwubunam from Denver had a touchdown pass from Teddy Bridgewater, and Melvin Gordon had a 70-yard run toward the end of the game that made it 27-7, and then Daniel Jones ran it in 27-13 and the game from 4 yards out. So again, another team where the receivers that you think are not the receivers that scored in this matchup. Cortland Sutton had 1 catch for 14 yards. Jerry Jeudy had good numbers in PPR and in general, 72 yards to lead the team, 6 catches, just didn't have a touchdown. But Cortland Sutton was quiet in this game. And Javonte Williams in his first ever start, he is a rookie running back out of North Carolina where I covered him. 14 carries, 45 yards behind Melvin Gordon's 11 carries for 101 yards. So Melvin Gordon's still the starter, but Javonte Williams, like I said, going to split that time. Javonte had more carries, but Melvin did more with it. Now, granted, that's ballooned by the fact that he had 10 carries for 31 yards, 3.1 yards a carry before his 70-yard run at the end of the game. So, in all honesty, Melvin Gordon's numbers weren't that great. 10 carries for 31 yards before his final run. And then Javonte Williams' longest run was 12 yards, 45 yards on 14 carries once again. So, like I said, Javonte Williams will eventually take over, albeit the fact that he's a rookie for North Carolina. I think he'll take over eventually. And when he does that, and he's already got more carries as a rookie in his opening game with 14 to Melvin's 11. So I think he'll do that at some point this season, maybe sooner than later. And despite the fact that he didn't score, I don't think fans should be too nervous. He did catch a pass, so that's another good thing. Making me 8-6. And I picked Chi-Town over the Rams, so I'm 8-7 going into Monday Night Football here. The Rams taking care of business at home. Again, why did I do this? I picked the Chargers on the East Coast, and I didn't pick the Rams when they had to travel to the Midwest. West Coast teams seem to do well at home against East Coast teams and other teams that come in, and they seem to do well when they're traveling. But I went against that and did not pick the Rams in this game. I thought the Chicago defense would show up a little bit more, and thinking about it, knowing that their offense has talent, but what that was going to look like was kind of up in the air here. So 20-point win for the Rams, and I should have known better because the Rams have more firepower. Matt Stafford, in his first game as a Ram, threw a touchdown pass to open up the game less than 5 minutes into the game as a Ram. he found Van Jefferson for a 67-yard touchdown. So Matty Stafford only waited 4 minutes and some change before scoring as a Los Angeles Ram. And then David Montgomery had the first score for Chicago, and that happened in the second quarter with 34 seconds before half on a 3-yard run. Matt Stafford also found Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods in the game, so that makes everybody feel good, as people don't always know who to draft between the two in fantasy football. And Darrell Henderson Jr., when a touchdown was called back, he then ran it in at the end of the third quarter with 1:19 to go in the third. Darrell Henderson on a touchdown run, yet another Memphis Tiger that I covered that came from the Mike Norvell era that is in the NFL doing good things and starting. And so we did get to see, just like we got to see Trey Lance, we got to see Trevor Lawrence, rookie quarterback. We got to see Zach Wilson, rookie quarterback. We got to see Trey Lance, rookie quarterback. 1, 2, 3 all drafted in the NFL this season. And Lawrence going to Jacksonville, Wilson going to the Jets, and Lance going to the Niners. And then we got to see who was drafted a little bit later, Justin Fields. We got to see him in his first ever game as a rookie quarterback. He went 2 for 2 with 10 yards, and Justin Fields had a touchdown on the ground from 3 yards out. So Justin Fields scores in his opening game. Trevor Lawrence scores in his opening game. Zach Wilson scores in his opening game. And Trey Lance scores in his opening game. All these rookie quarterbacks scoring in their first ever NFL game. So shout out to Justin Fields. The main guy was Andy Dalton, 27 of 38 for 206 yards, no touchdowns and a pick. Justin Fields 2 for 2 and a touchdown on his only carry of the game makes him look very good. And the leading receiver on the team, Marquise Godwin, coming over from San Fran, 4 catches for 45 yards. Cole Kmet, their tight end, 5 catches for 42 yards. Allen Robinson was targeted the most, 11 targets, caught 6 of them, so a little over half for 35 yards, but did not score in the game. And Tulane product that I covered when he was with the Green Wave, Darnell Mooney, 7 targets, 5 catches, 26 yards. So you see him getting involved in the offense. So good to see that, and great to see the fact that Justin Fields, really all the quarterbacks, scoring. So my record, 8-7 in my predictions this week. My goal is to always be above 500. I picked Baltimore on the road over the Las Vegas Raiders on Monday Night Football. If Baltimore wins, I'm 9-7. If they lose at worst, I'm 500. So I'll take it at 8-7 right now. We'll take our final step aside before Bob Beretta joins us inside of the Cafe Kubal here on Sweetheart Corner, on the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road in North Syracuse, New York. We appreciate you being here, and we'll be back right after this fast break.
Cafe Kubal Mobile Cafe brings the cafe experience to you. We'll roll out to your neighborhood or office, ready to serve our locally crafted espresso bar to our loyal patrons. Inquire at cafekubal.com. Cafe Kubal, coffee for the soul.
Hi, this is Amy from Mother's Cupboard, home of the whole frittata. We are open daily 6 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. For takeout orders, call 315-432-0942 and tune in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora for our monthly food challenge and try our Wake Up Call signature menu item available 7 days a week. Here at Mother's Cupboard, we are Central New York, and it's our honor to serve you.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, located on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, is home to over 40 flavors with more than 200 flavors in their total wheelhouse. Sky's the limit for this sweet and savory Central New York company. Keep it local at your parties, fundraisers, wedding showers, baby showers, and more by calling 315-450-MA-PA. That's 315-450-6272 for popcorn bars with custom flavors and colors at your upcoming event. Make sure to visit them on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. And for more information, go to maandpazsnacks.com. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you?
Here at Progressive Dental, we understand the importance of regular dental visits and preventive care. Cleanings and checkups are essential to good oral health. We have multiple locations in the Southern Tier, so come visit us in Binghamton, Enwell, Kirkwood, Montrose, and Norwich. For self-pay non-insured patients, we offer the Smile Plan, which covers all of your cleanings, x-rays, and exams for an affordable yearly price. Call 607-754-2273 or 607-754-CARE to make an appointment today. For more information, visit our website at progressivedentalny.com.
The Millhouse Market, located on 3790 New York 13 in Pulaski, New York, is worth the drive every time. Make sure you download their app on the Google Play or Apple App Store today, and you'll have everything at your fingertips, from their homemade breads and desserts, as well as to their quinoa bowls, rice bowls, brick oven pizzas, salads, and the sandwiches named after the families that helps to settle today's Pulaski, ingrained in our community and ingrained in our taste buds. The Millhouse Market open Tuesday through Sunday from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. and Tuesday through Saturday from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. and on Sundays from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. on 3790 New York 13 in Pulaski, New York, and we look forward to seeing you there. With that being said, Mr. Beretta is here with us for hour number 2 inside of Cafe Kubal. You know that Wake Up Call comes to you from the Cafe Kubal studios every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And each month you'll find us at Cafe Kubal, one of their many locations. And we're here at Sweetheart Corner. Just a couple days ago, Mary Grimes sat in this chair, the new head coach for LeMoyne Dolphins women's basketball, and now the new director of athletics, Bob Beretta, is sitting here. So Mary kept the seat pretty warm for you. How you doing, Bob?
I'm doing excellent, Dan. Thanks for having me out here today.
Absolutely, and happy to have you here inside of Cafe Kubal, and the balloons are still here. The excitement definitely here for the first ever drive-through, and I know that I got you your first Cafe Kubal coming into the community. We got you some tea just a few days ago.
That's right. I'm already hooked, so I'll be coming out to Cafe Kubal often, I think, in the days and months ahead.
So there's a lot for us to discuss, a lot to get into. I just finished up perfect timing, was able to finish here on my predictions for the NFL. Now, despite the fact that Green Bay almost laid a goose egg against Jameis Winston and the Saints in TIAA Bank Field in Jacksonville because they were displaced due to the hurricane. So despite that game, my Jaguars playing quite horribly defensively against the Texans, which I didn't anticipate was going to happen. Those games, the way that Buffalo played, I still came out with an 8-7 record. Yeah. So Monday night will make me 500, or it'll make me above 500. So I'm going to be okay, even though some bad things happen.
That's a solid first week, either way, Dan. So it's something to be proud about.
Yeah. I think when things don't go your way, and I think most people expected Jacksonville, Buffalo, Green Bay. So it's not like I went crazy on it. And Detroit, they scored. They ended the game, as I mentioned earlier, on a 23-3 run at home against San Fran. Yeah. So that was my boldest pick of the week, and they only lost by 8. So 8-7 for me. I'm feeling good with all the craziness that's still happening.
Yeah, get your feet wet. It's the first week of the year. It's all good.
Yeah, so speaking of football, you have a long tradition with Army. And before coming to LeMoyne, you spent a lot of time there, and obviously there with scheduling games. And I'd love to go into just what that meant for you to not only be someone within the staff at Army that was scheduling their games, but to schedule the Army-Navy game and to know that the background of this team is so much greater than simply being a student athlete. You're a student athlete and service to your nation, so they have technically 3 jobs at the same time.
Yeah, they really do. And the scheduling piece at an independent, I would argue, might be the hardest scheduling job in the country because, and I think Army's scheduling job, it really is the hardest job in the country because at West Point we were scheduling 10 games a year. You have the Navy game, you have the Air Force game, but you have 10 holes that you need to fill on that dance card every year. So I worked out 10 to 12 years. In fact, when I left Army in March, I had Army scheduled through 2034 completely with a couple of openings in 2035, but had a lot of 35. And Syracuse is is dotted on that schedule quite often. We had put together a 4-game series in the mid 2000s that are 2020s that are coming up now, and we added some games on the back end before I left, so something to look forward to. But it is an all-encompassing project. If you want to try to put all those pieces together at West Point, you want to play like academic institutions. You want to play places that make sense geographically. It's that home versus away mentality, that blend, that mixture. So there a lot goes into the schedule. It's a big mosaic, and you're just trying to fit pieces in to make sure the puzzle fits.
Yeah, I mean, there are certain people that you're going to play every year. Obviously, you're going to play Navy. And, Notre Dame is one of those teams that comes up on the schedule and whatnot. You try to play your other independents. When you have some of those openings, what do you look for? What was kind of the, I guess, the word for it, as you were looking at Army each year, like you said, having it scheduled through 2034 and most of 2035, what was the mentality or the mold that you were looking for at Army when you had a couple open dates?
Yeah, great question, Dan. And it's really a blend. It was a blend of geography. You want to play. So as an independent, you need to schedule those November dates. If people ask me all the time, what was our biggest threat to independence, and I would say scheduling. If you don't have games to play, right, you're not going to survive as an independent. So for me, when I would tackle a year, I would try to knock out those November dates. So Army would play Air Force that first Saturday in November every year. So that game got taken care of. That week got taken care of. So then I'd go to look at the other independents, and we were blessed that UMass, now UConn, right, both geographic players where we save an awful lot of money if we can hop on a bus as opposed to chartering a plane. Yeah. So as opposed to spending over $200,000 on a charter plane, we can get a bus and drive out there. So those would make sense. So you try to knock those out. And then beyond that, you're looking for a mixture. And at Army, we were looking for different places in the country that we would want to visit. Texas. It was a very fertile ground for Army in terms of recruiting. So we'd want to go out there every year or every other year, that kind of thing. We want to look at like institutions academically. Where in the country is the Army recruiting from? Where is West Point recruiting from? And ultimately, we want to go against teams that we feel like we can be competitive against. I'm not going to, we weren't going to be bashful about that. When we put a schedule together every year, we want a schedule that we can look at and say, all right, we feel at Army we're going to be competitive in every game with maybe 2 reaches. We would look at maybe 2 reaches, and this year Army's going to play Wisconsin. Now, we did that game at Army. We scheduled that game with Wisconsin 7 or 8 years ago, 2 or 3 ADs prior. And so now they just kind of come to fruition. So I would always look to try to schedule a game against a Power 5, a major Power 5, and then one other Power 5 school, such as a Syracuse, such as a BC, maybe a Duke, maybe a Northwestern, a school that had like academic qualities, but we weren't looking to fill the schedule with that. For the most part, I was looking at 2 Power 5s and the rest group of 5 schools that made sense for us academically, geographically, recruiting-wise, and ultimately teams that we felt we could compete against on the field.
And I have to ask you here, because she's liked a lot of our stuff this morning. Who's Brenda?
Well, Brenda is my sister.
Okay.
Brenda is my sister. Yeah, I was just with her down there this weekend and spent some time. So yeah, she's one of my biggest fans, if not my biggest fan. So she'll be very active on social media here, yeah. I'm sure.
I love it. I just love seeing it, and I like shouting out people. I'll give credit where credit's due. So shout out to you, Brenda, this morning, and appreciate you for being here and showing some love. Looking at the schedules coming up for Army as we look at this 2022 games that I kind of circle: at Coastal Carolina, a big-time team who's been doing some good things; at Tennessee, at Wake Forest. You got Colgate here in the beautiful upstate New York. That's 2022. In 2023, you'll be playing at Syracuse. The first game at Syracuse, and then Boston College right after that. Syracuse will come to Army West Point in 2024, and then back here in 2025, and then back there in 2026. So I selfishly, because I have family that is in all different parts of the military, but my grandfather and 3 of my grandfather, my great uncle Bucky, my great uncle Vince, and my grandpa were all in the Army. And then I had my other grandfather in the Navy, my great uncle Carmen, who's still alive, in the Navy, and my great uncle Pat in the Air Force. So they all served in World War II. They all came home, which is insane.
Incredible.
And so to have 6 go and come back, and without them coming back, there's no me.
Yeah.
So, and really, I mean, there's my parents, everybody. None of that happened. My grandfather was 18. My other grandfather was close in age to that, so it was probably 20s. And so for me to see Army Syracuse, I get jazzed for a game like that. I get up for that because I respect the military and I respect Army and I respect the history of my family. So bring me into scheduling for Syracuse and what that was like. And were you talking to Mr. Herm Frazier?
Yes, I was.
Okay.
Herm and I go back quite a ways. I've known Herm for a number of years. He was the athletic director at Hawaii. He was at a Temple. And so I dealt with Herm on a number of different fronts. And prior to Herm's arrival, we had gotten very close to finalizing some series with Syracuse. I felt like it was a great game for Army. It was another bus ride. We have obviously there's such a great alumni base in New York City of Syracuse graduates. When Syracuse would come to West Point, it's a automatic sellout. Made a lot of sense. It was a great trip for our fans to come up to the Dome. So we hadn't played since, I believe, 1996, and that was the year Army got off to this great start. Donovan McNabb was the quarterback for Syracuse. Army was undefeated, came up here to the Dome on a Saturday night, nationally televised on ESPN, and Syracuse won that game. The year Army finished 10-2, went to the Independence Bowl. But I was unable to get a series finalized. We got right up to the final contract, and then we just never signed it for various reasons. And finally, when Herm came on board, and I know Coach Babers came in, and I believe he's the son of an Army of an Army veteran. I was told that Coach was an Army brat and was very sympathetic to the military. We were able to get this series on the books and finalized. And then right before I left this spring, I was trying to fill a few more dance cards, if you will, a few more seasons worth of schedules. And I talked to Herm about adding some games, and we did in the 30s as well. So, sometimes it's personality. Sometimes these series come together very quickly. Sometimes it takes months to get finalized. Last year in the COVID year, it's crazy. We lost at West Point. We lost at one point all of our games. We were down to two games on our schedule. We had Air Force and Navy, and that was it. So I had to rebuild that schedule from scratch. And to the point where I was actually calling people on a Wednesday to see if they would play on a Saturday.
Yeah.
So then it kind of looks strange when you're saying, well, you're scheduling 12 years out. Last year you were everyone was in the same boat last year. So it was just a very unique situation.
So when in the 2030s is Syracuse scheduled?
I believe it's 32, 33. Okay. I think it's those years. I brought my grid with me when I left in March. I ended it. My last day at West Point was the end of March, and I think I brought all my files with me. I'd have to go back and check, and certainly they could have changed since I left, because while the schedules are in place, they are dynamic, and sometimes people call and ask for a date change, and you do what you can to try to help them out.
Yeah, because we look at this, and Buffalo is also on the schedule for 2033.
Yeah, we're out there. Yeah, and that's just what's been released. The Army does not release its schedules. They're out there. They kind of leak out. Sometimes the opponent wants to announce a series, and we do that. But Army, typically, when I was at West Point, we would announce the schedules in their entirety. So, for instance, the 22 season schedule should be probably getting put out here this fall, officially.
Yeah. We're taking a look right now at Coastal Carolina, Texas San Antonio, at Tennessee, Louisiana Monroe, Georgia State, at Wake, Colgate, Air Force in Arlington, at Troy, UConn, at UMass, and of course Navy back in Philadelphia.
Yeah, you look for a blend. You look for a blend of schools. That, again, we hope that, I say we, they, but when I was there, we hoped that we would build something that we felt like we could look at and say, hey, there's 6 or 7 games that we should be very, very extremely competitive, if not 10. And then you had the Air Force and Navy games, which every year are going to be a battle. I don't know if you had a chance to watch any of the Navy Air Force game this weekend. I was able to watch quite a bit of that. And it's a battle. I finished 23-3, but it was close at the half, and those games are just year in and year out. They're going to be brawls, backyard brawls, and they could go either way any year.
You're obviously a fan of athletics since forever. but being so involved in football. Here with Bob Beretta, the new LeMoyne Director of Athletics here in our community, and the other half of AD and DT, which is every first and third Wednesday of the month, which we just started here in September. And of course, Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Eastern Time is Dolphin Time, as you so adequately coined it.
That's right.
And so Dolphin Time every Wednesday at 9 a.m. We have first and third Wednesday is Bob and I and AD and DT, and then every second and fourth is the Dolphin Dive. And this week, I will be unveiling who that's going to be for week one, but we have two awesome guests coming up this month. Very ecstatic. One of the female student athletes and male student athletes will be joining us here from two different worlds, one on a court, one on a field. So I'm very excited about what's coming up here. We'll be releasing that on Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, Twitter at Call DT, and Instagram at Wake Up Call _DT. I don't know if you saw my story, Bob, but I found a Fins Up song and I used it with you, and I have this thought in my brain, and I'm unveiling this to Bob for the first time.
Yeah,
he can attest to this. So the song, I mean, we've seen Dabo Sweeney do the dab. We've seen some other things. I think if one of the teams gets a championship or something, I think we have to do a video of you and I suited up doing a little dance to this one. And this is the song. It just says Fins Up. So I like it, right?
Yeah, I like it. I like it. I'll tell you what. I'll make a deal with you right now. For every championship that our teams win,
yeah,
we'll go in and do one of those on the air.
We'll go a little Fins Up.
Yeah, Fins Up.
I liked it. Yeah, I was getting a little dance into it last night. I'm like, I can't wait to share this with Bob
That's
this morning.
outstanding. Yeah. Well, they'll give. I think if our teams know that we're going to do something like that in public, it might give them a little more incentive to be victorious.
Yeah, if you want to see Bob and I dance. Now listen, I have Italian and Hispanic blood, and we may have some from the Sudan as well. So it's in my blood to dance. So I want to believe that I can do something out there.
I'd like to believe that for myself, but I think I'd be completely wrong if I believed it. But if it meant it helped our teams competitively, I'll do whatever it takes to help our teams perform at the highest levels of their potential.
So you've heard it, LeMoyne College, to all of the teams in the men's and women's athletics. If you want to see Bob and I dance, win a championship.
It could work both ways too. We could say, we could make side deals and say, if we win, we won't have to watch you dance. So that could be. We're willing to make either deal as long as it results in a championship for our teams.
I think seeing you dance to Fins Up, at least the first time, is going to be worth it. I think we got to do that. So, staying with the football world, you and I both know very well Mike Resco of the American Athletic Conference, former Big East commissioner when the Big East had football. And Mike has, I've argued, nobody went through realignment almost 10 years ago worse than Mike, where he, in the Big East, was left with 3 teams that were there: UConn, who was a Big East team; South Florida, who had become one but really wasn't; Cincinnati, who had become one but really wasn't; and Temple coming back after they had been there once. He had almost nothing. Then he lost the name, and he lost the logo. No other conference lost their name and logo with the teams they were losing.
That's right.
So he had nothing on everything ripped off the door. The building's got nothing on it. They're painting over stuff. Literally starting over of the starting over of the starting over. And now realignment's rearing its head again. Big 12 a couple years ago, I remember sitting in Rhode Island in 2019. And the media, there was more media there than had ever been. And I didn't feel like it was because of the American. It was because the Big 12 had kind of let out this, maybe we're looking to steal. Now, the Power 5 has stolen coaches from the American since its institution, which to me shows that there's a Power 6, or else why poach the coaches? And then it was, are they going to poach the schools? So everybody was on nerves and waiting. And there was this air of, what is the Big 12 going to announce? Are they going to do it while we're sitting here? Mike had to go through that again. Then the Big 12 loses Oklahoma and Texas, allegedly in the next couple of years, to the SEC, which leaves Mike in a reverse opportunity of, okay, well, why don't I poach the Big 12? And then it spins back the other way. Mike is accused by some out there that he's colluding with ESPN, and it ends up ironically going the other way, but nobody writes an article about the Big 12 colluding. I just want to make note of that. So we're in a place now where the Big 12 has taken BYU, who, like the American, took Navy out of independence. Now BYU football is coming out of independence to join the Big 12, and they're getting UCF, Houston, and Cincinnati from the American, something that was a concern 2 years ago. What is your thought on what Mike went through, what he's been through, and on almost a decade anniversary of surviving it, he gets poached again?
Yeah, well, I have great respect for Mike Oresco. I go back with Mike when he was with CBS. He'd been in his previous career, had been with CBS for a number of years. In fact, Mike Oresco is the person who deserves the most credit for the Army-Navy football game getting moved to the second Saturday of December. Mike had pushed for that for a number of years because from a rating standpoint, the Army-Navy game had begun to suffer and had suffered once the proliferation of the championship games on that first Saturday in December. The Army-Navy TV rating went from a 7 or an 8 down to a 2 at one point, 2.5, 2.6, and Mike was talking to myself and the athletic directors at Navy and Army and trying to push it back. And there were concerns. We knew that it would cause some problems with potential bowl opportunities for the schools. That was a sticking point for a while, but eventually both institutions agreed that it would make the most sense, and that rating then doubled back up into the 5 and 6 range. So Mike gets great credit for that. I think Mike is a visionary. He was a visionary with CBS, and as you just so eloquently stated, Dan, he's a visionary in his role now as a conference commissioner, and he's been through this before. I don't think any conference is better positioned to absorb and withstand based on the resiliency of Mike. You know, I'm sure he was prepared for this. He had a long-range plan. He's a gentleman. Mike Oresco is a gentleman. You know, he's a man of honor and integrity, and he's going to follow his word. He's going to follow his sense of what is right, his sense of honor, and he will replace those that left in a way that it will be with great dignity, I'm sure, and it will bring great competitiveness to American Athletic Conference. I'm sure he's got several folks lined up, and he'll do it the right way. He'll replenish. It is going to be a blow. There's no question about it, but he'll replenish that league, and they'll be fine. They'll be just fine. Of course, you know, my colleagues down in the Naval Academy down in Annapolis, they're going to be going through some upheaval now with in terms of the opponents that they'll be facing, and so I'm close to what's going on through their eyes and through their ears. But it'll certainly result, I think, in a very much quality product that Mike puts together.
You know, I'm looking at some of these teams just to throw it out there. I'm looking at Louisiana, who's been ranked, and they're in the Sun Belt.
Yeah.
Because Mike got it right when he said, let's be called the American. Because if we don't put a number in here, it can't not make sense one day.
That's right.
And if we don't say we're the Big East and have a team from the Midwest, and the Big East originally was going to take, teams on the West Coast. Right. So in the Big 12 having 10 and the Big 10 having 14 and the Pac-12 changing its name, now the Big 12 will have 12 again. But with Mike saying we're the American, you can pull from anybody. Louisiana has been ranked in the Sun Belt. I look to them. I heavily look at Coastal Carolina for Mike in the Sun Belt. And outside of that, there's some other teams that I'm looking at. I look at the Mountain West and I say to myself, Colorado State doesn't make sense there. They have really no geographical rival in the Mountain West, so they could make sense. And just for fun, not that this would ever happen, Hawaii going up against Kenny Matalolo of Hawaii would be cool. And I know he plays them. But the reality of this is, in the Mountain West, Mike can make a call to Air Force because of that Navy game. He can make a call to Colorado State because it would make sense. I have said this for, 3 years now. I want Buffalo. They're good in women's basketball. They're good in men's basketball. They're good in football. Mm-hmm. They recruit from this area. And Mike Washington Jr., who comes from right up the road from Cafe Kubal here on Sweetheart Corner at CNS, played in his first ever game that he could play in and had some good numbers there as a running back for the team. So I like Buffalo as another team that they can look at. And Western Michigan's got my guy Tim Lester there. Yeah. And I would love to have a little Midwest feel with Western Michigan. And of course, I would also make that call in the right now, because Mike and I talked about BYU in the past, and he said, basically that they weren't really that interested. I'd make a call to Liberty. Now, I know that they're in another conference, but maybe you could try and pull them all the way and for football. But there's definitely a bunch of teams for them to look at. They can make a Florida footprint again with losing UCF by going after an FAU. So they can do that. Lane Kiffin had been there in recent history. A UAB, another team that they could look at. So, Mike, I know you got a list already, but I'm giving you about 6 to work with right now.
Yeah, Dan's helping Mike do his job. I think he'll look at all the pieces. He'll put it all together. I think geographically it's a big opportunity to expand that footprint and look at television markets, because that's always very important.
Yeah.
And I think that holistically he'll put together a product and they'll rebound, and while losing the likes of Cincinnati and Houston and UCF, absolutely a great blow. I think it gives credence to his comments all along about a Power 6. I mean, when the Big 12 looks to expand, they go to the American Athletic Conference. So I think Mike's comments about a Power 6 are spot on, man. They are a very strong conference, and now it's been borne out, and they're taking the top 3 schools out of there to go into a Power 5 conference.
Yeah, it's funny to me that if it's not a power conference, every year they reach for these guys. And not only that, I tell Miami fans all the time, do you like your quarterback, De'Ara King? He came from Houston. So it's not only, they poach the players, they poach the coaches. Now they're poaching the schools. At what point do they try to just take over the city in and of itself and maybe try to move the city? So, if it's not a Power 6, then why do you need it so bad, is my question. The SEC, the Big 10, the Big 12, the ACC, the PAC, everybody has looked to the American to take their coaches, their up-and-coming coaches. Mike Norvell, granted he had a bad week this week at Jacksonville State, but how he went up against Notre Dame, that's a Memphis guy. 5 running backs are in the NFL right now from Memphis, and 2 of them scored last week yesterday, Kenneth Gainwell and Darrell Henderson. So I know it because I spent almost a decade with it, and I was with Mike arm in arm before they had a name and a logo. So I know what the American Athletic is, and I don't defend it for any other reason than it deserves it. So I think it's a true definition of what America is.
Yeah.
America had an overlord, let's call it, Power 5, taking from it, and America fought for its independence, fought for its right to stand on its own. And when America was beaten down, it rose. When America went through a fire, it burned in the beginning, and then it used that fire. It never laid down. And Mike, being the leader of the American Athletic, to me, he's the definition of America. Bend but don't break.
Yeah, no question. And a lot of those schools that are in the American were held membership in Conference USA when Army was in Conference USA. A lot of those schools, we played them week in and week out, whether it was a Memphis, whether it was a Cincinnati, whether it was a Houston. So we're very familiar with those schools, very familiar with what he has left in that conference, and very familiar with probably places that he's going to look to now replenish with.
Is it weird for you coming to LeMoyne and seeing everything on the Heights, but then not having football? Because you are in the Northeast 10 and St. Anselm. A good friend of mine, Joe Adam, has a football program there. So is that something is that ever in the back of your mind, like, oh, we could have Dolphins on the field?
Well, it's always in the back of my mind. Always thinking about better ways to improve our athletic program. But I miss football. It was a big part of my life. I was there for 34 years at West Point and was very involved in all things that were football there. The Army-Navy game, all the scheduling, all the bowls. I had the responsibility of arranging all those, all the television contracts. So I'd be lying to tell you if I didn't have an eye towards the television on the past 2 Saturdays, watching an awful lot of the college football games. Army opened up at home this weekend. First home game I'd missed at West Point since 1986. So it was strange. It was strange watching the game on television. I taped it and watched it a little bit, but I do miss football. I love being at LeMoyne. It's a great opportunity, fantastic people, and really focused on advancing our program here and being the best LeMoyne that we can be.
I have to ask you, don't get mad at me. Could we ever see football at LeMoyne?
I'll answer it this way. We're always looking at ways to improve our athletic program. We're always looking at ways to raise the profile and the visibility of the college.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, some people have already brought that to my attention, that we should look at that. So we'll look at that. We'll look at a lot of things.
Okay, I like it. It's a good enough answer for it's in the realm of you're hearing it. It's a thought.
It's a thought.
It's a thought.
Absolutely.
Okay. I mean, it wouldn't be. I mean, I'm sure the Northeast 10 would welcome it because they already have it. So, just saying. I'm just saying. But we're here with Bob Beretta, Director of Athletics from LeMoyne College here, and we're inside of Cafe Kubal, the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road in North Syracuse. I'm enjoying my pumpkin spice chai. You can get your favorites today from any one of their locations, including the one that had their grand opening this past weekend right here. Mary, you saw Mary's video. I called it the grind with Grimes.
Yeah, it was great.
And right before I wrote the grind with Grimes, and she comes in, and I said, what do you think about this? And she said, well, when I'm on the recruiting trail, I call it Grimes on the grind. So smart minds here. How do you think Mary did in the debut of Cafe Kubal and in her debut in the community?
Yeah, I think she was fantastic, Dan, and thank you for the opportunity. We were really fortunate when we lost Gina Castelli. We tried to keep Gina. I can tell you that. She was part of the search committee that hired me. I developed a strong relationship with her, and I just know what she's meant to college sports, but certainly LeMoyne College over these past 7 or 8 years leading that women's basketball program. So we knew there'd be a huge void if she left. But we were really fortunate that we felt like there was an outstanding candidate out there, and in Mary Grimes, who'd been here twice previously, served as an assistant under Gina. So while we were so disappointed to lose Gina, we felt like we were blessed to have the opportunity to replace her with someone like Mary, who is going to do a fantastic job. She's going to be immersed in this community. I think you saw with how she performed on Saturday, and she's genuine, she's authentic, she loves being here on the Heights. Our young ladies around that program have responded so well to Mary being back, and I think we're going to see great things from that program and great things from Mary Grimes.
I asked her, because you say it all the time, on the Heights, and I asked her what that meant to her. What does it mean to you? Because you use that moniker so much with LeMoyne, on the Heights, and refer to it as the Heights, which really gives it an identity. What is that identity?
Yeah, I think the identity of LeMoyne College, Dan, is one of authenticity, of a genuineness, of a real warm feeling of values and character. And I felt that when I stepped on campus prior to my interview. I came up here one day and drove around when I was considering applying for the job back in February of 2020. And I felt this warm sense of mission on this campus. And I think it all kind of gets put into a blender, and it comes to this feeling of community. And I think that's what, when I say on the Heights or refer to LeMoyne or the athletic department in that manner, it gives it that identity, as you just mentioned. It's just not a place. It's more of a feeling. It's more of a community. And I think what I found from day one as I researched this position to now being over 4 months on the job as the athletic director, really since January, is that there's this incredible passion about LeMoyne College. There is a passion amongst its graduates, amongst its current students, amongst people that work there that don't have a connection other than it's a place of employment. There is just tremendous passion about being part of that community, about being part of that mission, and a sense of service. There's a huge sense of service. So when you think about all that, right, passion, and I talked about it, passion, hope, and service, it kind of are the prevailing elements of the culture that I found, and it's being nurtured on that campus every day. So I think when you refer to LeMoyne College as the Heights, I think there's this warm sense of belonging and this really strong sense of community.
And I think when you say on the Heights, the height of your potential, the height of your faith, the height of your drive, the height of your perseverance, the height of what you can do in your professional world, in your personal world. When you say on the Heights, in a way, you're asking everybody at LeMoyne in the community to reach their highest of their highs.
Yeah, well, I couldn't have said any better, Dan. I refer to this all the time. I think one of the missions of athletic administrators, we're always, our primary goal, right, our number one priority is always to be in complete alignment with the academic mission of the institution. But then secondly, we want to put our student athletes in position to reach the uppermost levels of their potential, right? We want them to reach the highest level of what they can be, both as contributors in the community, contributors on the court or on the field, and contributors on campus in so many different ways. And one of the words that I've talked about a lot this semester has been elevate. So as administrators, we're trying to elevate. We're trying to increase our level of service every day, a couple of inches, an inch every day. As athletes, we're trying to elevate our game every day, every session, every training session, every practice. As coaches, we're trying to learn and get better every single day so that we elevate. And if we can all continue to elevate a little bit every day, we'll be able to look back in 6 months and say, we won a championship and this is how we did it. We were able to grind together. We were able to elevate every area of our service just enough so that when it all came together, it was an awful lot.
Bob Beretta, Director of Athletics, here with us on site on location, Cafe Kubal, Sweetheart Corner, the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road in North Syracuse. And I love that they had their grand opening, so it's a familiar name, but a new location. Mary, a familiar name at LeMoyne, but a new head coach. You, a familiar name in the state of New York and in athletics, but new here to LeMoyne. It's all comes together in this world. How small, in your opinion, is the sports world? Because they say, oh, it's a small world. I think the world is small. I think the sports world is darn near tiny, that you turn around in like a porter potty and it's like, oh, there's Phil. You know what I mean? It's such a tiny world that I think the older I get, you realize that you should build bridges, never break them, because the sports world really is that close-knit together.
Oh, 100%. I am in full agreement. I just give you a couple of brief examples. When I was at West Point back in February of 2020, and I learned of the opening here, I started to do my research. And as I began talking to people that I was working with, either at West Point or different projects, there was always a LeMoyne connection. For instance, we were in the process at that time of talking about a major renovation to the football stadium at Mikey Stadium, and they're still in the fundraising stages, but we had partnered with Legends Hospitality, and we were in for a meeting one day, and they brought their president of global sales and a vice president of global sales in, and I had known them, had been talking to them, and during the course of that conversation that day, it was in February of 2020, that I came to understand that Mike Ondrako, who's the president of global sales, and Mike Behan, the vice president of global sales, both former LeMoyne basketball players, graduates, both played here. Again, continuing that theme, I was talking to someone who I dealt with for many years at CBS Sports, Kelly Dunn, senior vice president for marketing. During the course of that time when I was considering applying, I come to realize that she's a LeMoyne graduate. Had no idea. So there were all these consistent themes that were emerging, but to your point about the world being small, here's someone that is a major personality in that Legends Hospitality organization, too, in fact, LeMoyne graduate, people that I've been dealing with. Vice president of CBS Marketing, had dealt with her for 2 decades. Didn't realize she was a LeMoyne graduate. I know that that there are LeMoyne graduates sprinkled around at high levels, and it does speak to your point of being a very small world, particularly in the world of sports.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful, and you see that it surrounds you, and you had said off the air to me that when I had made some connections with different things, you said, Dan, I was surrounding you before I got to LeMoyne, that this would work out. So
that's right.
It's just funny how the world works, where it's like God's setting up dominoes and you have no idea, and then they all fall and you go, oh, this is really cool in the here and now, and then you find out that he's been setting them up for like 2 hours, 2 years and 10 months, and he just decided one day to hit it, but it had been there. You find out you go to a concert and this person ends up being your best friend years later, and you were at the same concert when you were 15 years old, but you didn't meet until you were 27. And this is like somebody who's like a brother to you now. It's crazy how the world works, and I call them God incidences because I don't believe coincidences happen. I don't believe anything's chance. I think that, you know, God's literally like, all these dominoes are set up, and then he just flicks it one of the days.
Yeah, it's not our place to know exactly the why in that moment, but in time we'll know the why. And as you just mentioned, you know, more times than not, you'll think back and say, well, now that makes an awful lot of sense.
Yeah.
We just don't know at the moment, but it's being set up for a greater picture.
We'll take our final step aside here from Cafe Kubal's Sweetheart Corner. When we come back, Bob and I will remember 9/11 right after this. Avicoli's, located on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, is our home for the Liverpool Warriors sit-down broadcast. Make sure you find your way over to us there at Avicoli's, and we appreciate you being there. Of course, at Avicoli's every single Tuesday through Sunday for lunch, dinner, and drinks. They're open on their pizza and casual side, as well as their fine dining, their bar, and their outdoor dining while this weather stays nice here in the community. And of course, you can call them at 315-622-5100 today for takeout, delivery, and catering. That's 315-622-5100, and go to myavicolis.com. Canine Camp Dog Daycare and Canine Campground Dog Boarding, your home for your furry loving friend away from home. Make sure you make your way out to Canine Campground Dog Daycare and Canine Campground Dog Boarding today. And of course, you can get to the dog daycare by calling 315-437-7110. There for grooming, daycare, as well as a store to pick up food, harnesses, leashes, and so much more for your dogs. And of course, the campground right around the corner in East Syracuse on 242 Johnson Street, 315-299-4013 for the longer term care for your furry loving friends. And Lily endorses them both, and that's all you really need. PB&J's Lunchbox, Monday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Find them on 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. Minutes from the highway, the Thruway, Destiny, USA, and Onondaga Lake Parkway. The food truck you've chased around central and upstate New York is now a street-side cafe that you can go to at your leisure for breakfast, lunch, and dinner from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. on 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool. And Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, place I've trusted for almost a decade. Any injury from head to toe, you can call them at 315-685-7544 and head out to beautiful Skinny Atlas to 791 West Genesee Street and see a team led by Dr. Mark Petropoli that does something so few doctors do. They listen, they care, and they walk you through your process, understanding that everyone's path to victory is just a little bit different, and they want to help you with yours. Call 315-685-7544 today. Back here inside of Cafe Kubal on the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road, myself, Dan Tortora, joined by Director of Athletics of LeMoyne College, Bob Beretta. We've hit the ground running, and we made the announcement on August 26th, my Grandpa Cavino's birthday, at 2:13 to honor a time that God shows me almost every day. 21 and 13 put together my number and his. And after doing that, on September 1st, right away, got after it and did our first AD and DT. Mary's been here, you're here. Our first dolphin dive is this Wednesday, September 15th. Bob, what can you say about what we're looking to do in this multimedia marketing partnership and how we have wasted no time in making sure to put a message out?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you, Dan, because this would not be possible without the success that you've experienced and without the grinding, right? I know how hard it is to build an organization as you have and a company to the success that you have. And I know your career is long and certainly esteemed. So we're blessed to have the opportunity to partner with you. In terms of our goal, I wanted to try to find a partner that would help raise the profile of the institution, also help raise the profile of our athletic program and our student athletes. I wanted to find someone that we might be able to help make a presence in the community. It's very important to me that we immerse ourselves as a department and as an institution in this community of Syracuse, and here particularly in North Syracuse. very important to do that, but we wanted to do it with the right person, someone that I felt shared a lot of the value set that we have at LeMoyne, and I don't think I know that we could not have found a better partner than you for that. So I thank you for all of that. We have hit the ground running, and it's been fantastic to give LeMoyne a little bit of exposure in terms of already with AD&DT and with Mary Grimes, and now here today and the Dolphin Dive on Wednesday. For us, it's an opportunity to tell a story, right? And that was my goal. Is we have tremendous stories at LeMoyne College. Our student athletes, and we'll touch on a couple here in the next 2 Dolphin Dives, and we'll have some more behind that. They're just doing incredible things, not just on the fields, but in their everyday lives. And I think it's very important that we tell that story. I think that not only do they deserve a little bit of publicity, our student athletes, I think it's a story worth telling, and it speaks to the product that LeMoyne College will generate, right? The final product is amazing. Those young people that graduate as Dolphins, they have great stories to tell. They're going to go on to become tremendous contributors in all sectors of our society and immersed in our communities nationwide, but certainly right here in Central New York and in Syracuse.
And I can't thank you enough for your words and, your vision and seeing. You work tirelessly. I mean, in my world, you work every day hoping that you make a positive difference, hoping, I don't do it for accolades. I don't do it for money. I mean, obviously, it's a business. You want to grow it. You want to do different things with that. But I do it more than anything else to serve God, and anybody that knows me knows I'm never going to be bashful of that. But it's to serve God. It's to bring goodness and positivity. It's to help make somebody's day. If your day is bad, I want to make it better. If it's great, I want to make it greater. And I believe in the redheaded stepchild, the places that people haven't gone to yet, because I am one. And so for me, LeMoyne made perfect sense because it is here in my community. It has value in my life. And from when I came back to Syracuse, and the model was Syracuse football, Syracuse men's basketball, not even any of the other sports at Syracuse, not LeMoyne, not OCC, not Oswego, not Cortland, not Cornell, not Binghamton. And I kept saying, why not? And I got to a point where I said, you know what, I'm going to do what I want to do. And anybody that battles me back, when I worked for other people, it was a question of, why are you telling the story? Why aren't you doing what everybody else does? I said, listen, in my opinion, I'm doing what everybody else is doing, but it's with my own twist. What I'm also doing is going into all these worlds, all these households, all these institutions and these courts and these fields, and telling the stories that need to be told. And LeMoyne, to me, has had a near and dear place in my heart, because I kept saying to myself when I came home from Florida, why not LeMoyne? And Gina Castelli and I got to start that road, and we just continued it. And when you came here, ironically and very God incidents-wise, Gina's the one that introduced you and I. And, from the moment that I met you, I knew you for 2 seconds, and I said, Bob, we should talk. And you said, yeah, I'd love to meet with you, grab lunch or something. And my vision to do something like this has been in the background, but the fact that you saw it, you believe in it, and that we can do this together, this to me is starting a trend. It's starting a precedent that I'm very excited about. And like I said, I want to go back and watch this video a decade from now and say, Bob, look at what we did, but knowing the type of people that we are, I want to enjoy everything we accomplish. And then I want to say, all right, Bob, 10 years later, what are we doing next?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have said it better. And you touched on all those things, Dan, that attracted me to LeMoyne, and those themes that I have found at LeMoyne. You talk about, you mentioned it in right there about goodness, right? It's part of our mantra, greatness meets goodness. You talked about service. Well, that's a huge part of the Jesuit faith and what we stand for at LeMoyne College, service. And then the passion is what I found at LeMoyne. With anyone that talks about LeMoyne and part of LeMoyne, there's this incredible passion, and you can see that passion in your voice for what you do, right? For what you do, which I'm attracted I'm attracted to passionate people, because I'm passionate myself, and I feel like you can accomplish great things when you're with like minds when it comes to that, and the passion for this industry, but also the passion for LeMoyne. It was, for me, it was a no-brainer. It was a perfect person to partner with, and I think our goals are the same. Our goals are to be immersed in this community, to tell great stories that maybe aren't being told, and to shed some light on some other things that may not be gaining the exposure that they deserve. And I know where we are in this market, and I have nothing but positive things to say about my friends at Syracuse. In fact, my daughter works in the athletic department now at Syracuse University. I just feel like LeMoyne can carve its own niche in this marketplace. I think we're a little bit different, and I feel like we do things the right way. Not that Syracuse doesn't, I believe they do as well. But I just feel like we can coexist, and we can be the best LeMoyne we can be. We can carve our own niche, and we have fabulous stories, fantastic student athletes, and a great mission. So why wouldn't we want to provide as much exposure to that as possible?
Yeah, and everybody has a story to tell, from the Syracuses to the LeMoynes and so on and so forth. And so it is my honor and my privilege that we get to do it in a unique way that I've never gotten to do before, but something that I've wanted to do. So I want to thank you for seeing my vision and helping me make it a reality, because it takes two to do this. And, you know, like I said before, I don't think anybody's ready in all the best of reasons. You know, for what's coming, there's so much we're going to be able to do, and so many opportunities that'll come forward that I'm really, really excited about. And, you know, it's like, you know, when I was with Mike Oresco years ago, and I put my arm around him, and he said, thanks for being here. And I said, Mike, from one redheaded step kid to the next, we're going to do this together. Because he was starting a conference from scratch, and I was starting a business from scratch. And now, you know, Bob, in our own unique way, we're doing something totally different. And so arm in arm, we're going to make a difference. We're going to make it great. And I'm looking forward to it, because knowing myself and the way my ideas are, whatever works, I'm going to love, but I'm always going to be churning. And I know that you are too. And I think that, you know, we're going to challenge this community and beyond, and challenge each other to really get the most out of good people, and to really be where greatness meets goodness.
Without question. I think that we're excited about it. We're excited about what the future holds. We're excited how this can grow. And we're excited to be partnered with someone who we feel like is in alignment with our mission and with our goals, and with the ultimate belief that we can make a difference.
And that's what it's all about. And in that air of positivity, I would love to, you know, with your connection to Army and just, you know, who you are as a human being, to remember 9/11. Hard to believe, 20 years later. I went to school at Christian Brothers Academy, not too far away from where we are at Cafe Kubal at Sweetheart Corner right now. And I remember so much about that day. I remember walking through the hallway, and there was nobody in the hallway. I remember the staircase I came up, and looking down the hallway when it hit me that something had actually happened and it wasn't a movie. I remember coming out of, and it was so ironic, I was in history class, history geography. I'm coming out of geography, and my teacher, none of us knew, and for a split second of time, everything was still normal. And you saw kids walking through the hallway at CBA, and there was nothing. And then someone said something amidst the sea of us, and then it kind of hit. Some people knew and some people didn't. Then I went into my religion room, and I asked my religion teacher, can I turn the TV on? And she said no. And I said, well, somebody just said one of the towers was hit. I want to turn it on. And she said no 2 or 3 times. And then somebody came in and said something, and she looked at me and she goes, turn the TV on if you know how to. And I plugged in the cables and stuff, and plugged in the back, because it wasn't even plugged into the cable jack. And I turned it on, and when I turned it on, it was smoking, and I turned it on right before the second tower fell. And so we're sitting there watching this, and my head is thinking, oh, this is a Harrison Ford movie. He's going to show up, jump out of a plane, and everybody's going to be okay. And it was that, like, curiosity, and that, like, oh my gosh, it's the climax of a movie. And then, like, having it hit you like, this is real. This isn't a movie. This is an actual tower. There's probably people in there. And after that, I remember, you know, eventually we got home, and I can't remember what time I got home, and I had homework, and I had my social studies book open, and I looked at my mom, who was in the kitchen doing dishes, and I said, how can I sit here and do history homework when we're living history right now? Like, how can I literally sit here and do this while I'm living it right now? Like, what teacher would ask this of us? My dad came to the back door. He came home at like 3:30, something, probably 3. He comes home dead silent, And for some reason, he came to the back. And she goes, open the door. I opened the door for my dad. He looked at me. He grabbed me, and he squeezed me so tight I thought he was going to break my bones. And I asked him why. And he said it was in that moment, for the first time ever, that I didn't know in my life what was going to happen next. And he didn't know what was going to happen to our country, what was going to happen. And it was that thought of like, you know, can I protect my son? I will never forget that day for the rest of my life. I cannot for the life of me believe that it was 20 years ago. You were at Army for 34 years, so you were at Army when this happened.
Yeah.
What do you remember of the day? And what was life like on a campus that features the people that in a moment like that are kind of looking to each other going, okay, we're not waiting for someone to react. We are the reactors.
Yeah, it was incredibly moving, Dan. To answer your question first about the day itself, I was in the athletic department at Army at West Point, and we had an administrative assistant who, just outside my office, had turned on the television, and I noticed that she was riveted to it and walked right outside and watched the events unfold myself on television 50 miles to the north of West Point, or I should say to the south of West Point. I went up to our athletic director. It was Rick Greenspan at the time, went on to become the AD at Indiana and down at Rice. And they were in a staff meeting. He was in a staff meeting. We had a home football game that Saturday scheduled against Buffalo, of all teams, one of your favorite schools. And I pulled the AD out because there was no internet at that time, or it was just that we were scratching the surface of what it could be. There was no social media, so news didn't travel that quickly. So I went upstairs and I talked to his administrative assistant and said, hey, I need to talk to Rick quickly. So I pulled him out of the meeting and told him there is a significant happening taking place that we need to be aware of, and that it very well could cause the cancellation of our football game that Saturday, because he was in a meeting about that. So this conversation was going to supersede that meeting that he was having. And of course, the events unfolded as the day went on. But being around our football players, we practiced that day. I had the opportunity to do a couple interviews this past week, one for CBS and one for the Associated Press, and Rick collected, talked about those times. Todd Berry was our head football coach, and I gave Todd a tremendous amount of credit because he was a leader of those young men at that time, and they needed someone that would provide them the space, would provide them the opportunity to talk, but to provide them leadership, because their world's changed in a heartbeat, Dan. At that point in time, it was a time of peace. And while cadets would enter West Point with the knowledge that they could be called to a greater mission, to go out and defend our nation's freedom, it wasn't, at that point in time, it was a safe place to be. In a moment's notice, their lives changed dramatically. They knew that with a matter of 6 to 8 months, they could find themselves in harm's way defending our nation's freedom. I think one of our football players said at the time, he said that we don't know where we're going to be in 8 months, but we're pretty sure there's going to be sand beneath our feet. They knew they were going over. They were going to lead from the front, and everything changed dramatically in a matter of seconds. So it was impactful, it was powerful, it was emotional. We didn't play that first Saturday as college football was suspended for that weekend. So we ended up rescheduling that Buffalo game for November, but our first game back was the 22nd of September, and 11 days later down in Birmingham. We played down at UAB, and we were absolutely dismantled by UAB. We were down 34-3 at the half, lost 55-3. How could those players not be distracted by everything that was going on? So much larger than football. But football was important. Football was important for us to be able to convey the message to the rest of the nation that our men were strong, that our men were resilient, that our young people were going to be leading from the front, and that the country was in good hands. And in one of the interviews I talked about, even now, I second-guess a little bit. I was the SID at the time. I was an assistant athletic director and the sports information director, and oversaw the football communications piece, and we were inundated with media requests, inundated to the point where I had to limit them, but I didn't know looking back, if I limited it enough, because they were just fully engulfed in everything, in all the events, but also so many media requests. But I felt it was really important. I thought it was important that the nation heard what I was hearing. What I was hearing was this confidence, this uncertainty, but this passion, this resolute determination to go out and defend our nation's freedom. And I felt like while we were in just terrible place in our nation's history, this tragedy that had occurred, that we were going to be okay because these young men were going to be leading the way.
And, and for you, I mean, you get to know them personally. How did you handle the fact that, you're not their father biologically, but to some of them, you could be an extension of that, or an uncle, or a big brother. How did you handle looking across looking around the room and saying to yourself, it is my responsibility to schedule games for these guys and to be such a big part of this program, but when I'm scheduling games and we're sitting here next season, I could be sitting in a meeting room and some of these kids aren't here because there was sand at their feet.
Yeah, it's a great point. And you know what? It provided me an incredible motivation over the years that I stayed at West Point. It really put my value set back in place. I was never in the military, and I wasn't going to be able to lead these young men in the battle. But what I could do in my role as, at one point, the executive AD there at Army, the second in command in the athletic department, or whether I was an entry-level intern when I started, I was motivated to do the best job I could every morning when I got out of bed, because I wanted our young people to look back at their time. If they were in a foxhole someplace in the Middle East, or if they were in harm's way somewhere, that they might think back to the time as a student athlete at West Point and say, you know what, I had an extraordinary experience. I look back at those were the best years of my life. So that motivated me to do the best that I could every single day, because I wanted to provide our young people, our young men and women that would go out and lead our nation's sons and daughters into battle. I wanted to provide them the best memory that I could from their time at West Point, because they were going to go out and make this world a better place for myself and my family, and so that my daughter, at the time she was 2, and I went home and hugged her that day as well, that they were going to help deliver a place where she could pursue her passions, whatever they would become. And it was because of people like Chad Jenkins and Clint Dodson and Dustin Plumador and Brian Zickafoose, all these members of that football team and those that followed, that would make this world a better place.
Did you feel the weight on your shoulders before, during 9/11 time, or after, that whatever experience you gave these student athletes at Army might be the last that they ever had?
That's a great question, and you try not to focus on that. You know that war is a bad thing. There's nothing worse, and you know how it impacts families. There was a baseball pitcher named Steve Reich, and if people want to Google his name, R-E-I-C-H, and Steven was the best of the best. He would have been drafted by the major leagues. He was with the Baltimore Orioles for a while. He got called back to service. He was flying Apache helicopters, and Steven was raised his hand. He was in command, and there was a unit that was going to go out and try to bring some Navy SEALs that were behind enemy lines that were caught back there. And so it was going to be one of his pilots, and he raised his hand and said, "No, I'm going to go." Part of the Night Stalkers group. He went and led that mission. It got shot down. Stephen was killed, and I attended his funeral in a small town, Washington, Connecticut, on a July weekend. I believe might have even been around the 4th of July. And I remember driving through this small town, this small community of Washington, Connecticut, not far from Danbury, and seeing flags. Stephen was a hero. Stephen was a hero before he gave up his life for the ultimate sacrifice. He was a hero in that small town, and I couldn't help but think how many times that scene was being played out around the country, and it impacted me greatly. I have a flag from his service in my office today, here at LeMoyne with me. I've had it in my office every day since that time. And that's when it really impacted me, Dan, when I went back into Stephen's hometown, and I said, I hope and I know that this country greatly appreciates the service of our men and women in uniform. And it's moving to see an instance like that where you say goodbye to a hero. But that scene has been played out many times, way too many times over the past 2 decades before that. But it really hammered home to me the notion of, I can't prevent that, but what I can do, I hope, is provide the best opportunity, the best experience that I can in my role. And you try not to think about what could happen, but it's there every day. You know, it's there every day amongst our young men and young women. The thing that really gave me tremendous confidence and a bit of resolution, if you will, and a bit of peace was, I know that a place like West Point and Annapolis and the Air Force Academy, they are trained as well as they're going to be trained to go out and face these horrible situations. No young man or young woman is going to get better training. They're going to be so well prepared to go out and take on these incredible missions, and that's what I felt like I had some small role to play in that, and I was going to do that to the best of my ability.
You know, and I thank you for, you know, everybody always says when we talk about the military, the Army, you know, the Navy, Air Force, and so on, we always hear thank you for your service, but thank you for yours to them, because people forget they're kids. You know, these are teenagers, these are young 20s, and these men and women, this is what they know. This is the life that they have. It's the life they've chosen. And in the case of, you know, I spoke with one of the players on the Navy team this year, and when we were speaking going into the season, I asked him about life, and he said, "Listen, at Navy, we were not allowed to leave our dorm room. So some of us had roommates that were on the football team, some of us didn't. But we literally saw a roommate and went to practice. They were allowed 1 hour out of their room a day. 1 hour. That was it. And that's all that they had. An hour, hour and a half, that was all that they had. I mean, you get fed at the dorm, eat in the dorm, and you just think about all of these sacrifices, and then you think about the pandemic, and they were closed off from the world even more so. So, I mean, I think what people fail to understand is, yes, you want your team to win. Yes, you want to go undefeated, and you want to win a championship, and then after you win one, you want to win one for the next 1,000 years. But what people forget is student athletes during this pandemic, they had to give up everything just to play the game so that you could watch it at home. And then on top of that, Army, Navy, Air Force, they had to give up more, and then their life is always on the line. So we talk about, people say, oh, you know, Navy joined the American, and look at how much they're struggling now with the triple option. Look at how their defense is playing. Look at, you know, the Army wasn't ranked for so many years. You know, Air Force, oh, well, people say. And the thing is, these aren't just football teams. These aren't just sports programs. These young men and women, at any given points, can be asked to give it all up. And you had to live in a world where the starting quarterback at Army may not be there, not because he's injured, not because of COVID protocol, not because he had a death in the family and went home, but because he's in Afghanistan. And nobody else outside of the military teams has to feel the weight of, oh yeah, our starting wide receiver that had 1,000 yards last year, he got killed on a mission. That's such a rare, small group of people will ever experience that. And for you to have to stand in a room and go, oh, Matt used to sit there, he was killed after he went here on this mission. Oh yeah, that's where Steve was, that's where Pete was, that's where Sally was, that's where Stacy was. I can't even fathom having to look in the room and say, oh, they're not active for this game because they're on active duty.
Yeah, I'll tell you the other thing that really impacted me, Dan, was right after 9/11, the applications to West Point spiked, and that speaks it spoke volumes of that generation, of this generation, that we've been in war for 2 decades, and the numbers of application at West Point, and I believe it's the same in Annapolis and out in Air Force, have spiked. And so not only are there still a small number of young people willing to sacrifice at the highest level, it's never been higher after a time of war, after this insipid action on our country. There were so many young people that raised their hand and said, I want to serve. I want to defend our nation. I want to hold those accountable that did this horrible act on our country. And that moved me greatly, and it spoke volumes of this generation, and it continues to do so in a time of a volunteer army and a volunteer navy and a volunteer Air Force, that so many young people are so willing, so passionate, so determined, so resolute to go out and defend our freedoms and our ways of life. I think that provides us all, it should provide us all with a great feeling of warmth, a great feeling of confidence, and a great feeling of belief in this country and our young people.
Yeah, and I think that's a beautiful note, the fact that you mentioned that people not only still want to serve, but after something like that, where you think that people would run and hide and cower in a corner, no, more people stepped up and said, no, I'm going to help. And like you said about Stephen Reich, when someone else could have gone, he said, I'm going. And he gave his life. He gave up his future. He gave up playing baseball. He gave up being a father. He gave up everything because he said, they're not going to go, I'm going to go, this is my job.
Yeah. Leading from the front, that's what West Point is all about. And that's what, quite honestly, those are the traits we're trying to instill in our young people here at LeMoyne College and in colleges across the country. I can speak to LeMoyne because that's where I am here on the Heights. But we want our young people to lead from the front in a different manner, right? They may not go out and serve in one of the military branches, but they're going to go out and serve the community in so many different ways. And we want our young people to lead from the front and be tremendous, active folks and active, valuable components in all sectors of society in our community. And we feel like we're doing that.
Here with Bob Beretta, Director of Athletics at LeMoyne College, and part of our multimedia marketing partnership that we just started here in September with LeMoyne. We're on site on location at Cafe Kubal on the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road, Sweetheart Corner in North Syracuse. Before we wrap things up and play a little bit of rapid fire, you talk about leading from the front. What would you like to see from this country? 18 months of a pandemic. Some people would argue that we are so divided. We said 20 years ago, united we stand. And not everybody lives that way now. We've said we never forget, and some people have. What do you want to see, not only from the Central and Upstate New York community surrounding LeMoyne, but in general from this country and from the world? How do we lead from the front now? How do we make the next move in history a positive one?
Yeah, such a difficult question, Dan, and so impactful. I think we need to put personal beliefs, personal agendas aside and come together. I think I was able to watch former President Bush's address to the folks of Shanksville, Pennsylvania over the weekend, and I would encourage people to watch that. It was one where it didn't speak to being a Republican or being a Democrat or being an independent. He talked about this nation and what he recalls this nation to be as back then at the time of these horrible terrorist attacks, we came together as one, and we put competing agendas aside for the greater goals of this country, for the mission of one. So I would encourage people to view that. It's about a 10-minute speech, and I watched it yesterday, and very moving, but it also brought us back to center, to where we need to be as one, and remember that we're all in this together. We're one community, even though we're across the country, and we need to be able to fight together as one, right? We can accomplish so much as one united front, as opposed to, right, the separate fingers. The fist is so much stronger than the separate fingers, and not to simplify it to that degree, but to come together as one to put competing agendas aside and look for the future and look for what's in the best interest of our young people, because that's who this country, that's who we're going to count on to lead this country, and we need to be able to be in a place where we're feeling that we've done the best that we could to hand over a united front. And it's so difficult to put into words because it has been such a difficult time, and we have been through so much, and there has been such division. But remember, we're all one people with one common goal.
And coming from Bob Beretta here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of Cafe Kubal. Final note here, rapid fire. We'll go 2 and 2. Could be about literally anything. And so I'll let you have the first question.
So I'm going to ask you what's your favorite beverage here at Cafe Kubal has been?
It's got to be the chai, and it's the pumpkin spice. But then also I did a mixture of honey and brown sugar in the chai, and so that's been good. I finally had the iced one, which was very, very good. But yeah, I would have to say the chai is my favorite with almond milk, and because I can't have regular milk, it's just my stomach doesn't like it. So I would have to say the chai, pumpkin spice, or honey and brown sugar.
Okay, great answer.
What is the one word that you hope most people would say about you, if they can only say one word?
Integrity.
Okay. I like that. Why?
Honor and integrity. I know that's 2 words, but that's what we should all strive for, right? I think that if you operate with the highest levels of honor and integrity, it's going to be very difficult for people to think anything but positive thoughts about how you would impact that community. So I would hope that people feel like they may not agree with all of the decisions that we're going to make at LeMoyne, but they're going to do so knowing that whatever we tried to do, it was with the highest levels of honor and integrity.
Fair enough. I like that. Honor and integrity. What's your last one for me?
My last one for you is you've been all over the country. You've been in this for many, many years. You've talked to athletes in every sport. What one answer to a question that you may have asked over the years that you didn't expect? Sometimes you ask a question, right, as a reporter, you think you know what the answer is going to be. I'm wondering the one time you asked a question and got completely, I don't want to say flustered or flabbergasted, because I know that that's not of your nature, but at least in your mind that thought, that's far from what I thought the answer was going to be.
I can dial it up right away. It was Peyton Manning. It was the only time I have ever talked to him. And I was in his locker room in Jacksonville. He was playing for the Colts at the time. And I stood next to him. And so actually, if you saw it on the TV and he's looking at the TV, I was right over his right shoulder. And I asked him a question that I thought was clear. And somehow he didn't understand me. So the one time I talked to him, the answer was just not what I was looking for. I said, Jacksonville's defense has different players. You know, they had a bunch of newcomers come on. It's a different look than what you're used to because the Colts and the Jaguars in the AFC South play each other twice a year. So I said, obviously you know this defense, but the personnel's changed. What can you say about the personnel that you saw out there on the field, like what you were seeing from the new guys on the field? So in my head, I'm saying, what do you think of the defense of Jacksonville going up against them with these new players? I thought that was self-explanatory. How do you view the defense with the new guys out there? And he looked at me and he goes, I don't understand the question. He's like, I don't play for them. He's like, I play for the Colts. I don't play for Jacksonville. I can't speak to the personnel because I'm not on the team. And I was like, what? And I remember looking at him going like, I want to do it again. And then somebody else, and I was like, he's looking at me like, how am I supposed to answer the question? I'm not on the roster and I don't make the decisions. And I was like, yeah, but you're the quarterback that just had to throw in amongst them. So how can you not answer? Like, what did you see from the defense? So it just threw me off. And I remember shaking and if you see me on camera there, shaking my head like, this is the one time I got to talk to him. This is what he said to me. So I need to have another chance with Peyton. I would say that.
I would think you'll get one.
Yeah, I hope so. My last question for you is, who would you consider to be the most inspiring person in your life?
Wow, great question. My father he passed away
Sorry.
when I was 30. So he passed away, it's almost 25 years ago. But I would say my mother immigrated to this country when she was 17, and she left her entire family behind for a chance of a better life. And the more stories I learn of her journey, of her adventure, to make my life so much better than what hers was, she's an incredible inspiration to me. And the fact that the two of them together were my biggest inspirations. I'm blessed to have that strong family background, but to see what she's gone through and what she sacrificed to attempt to find a better life and to put forth a way that my sister Brenda and myself could flourish in this country and both go to college and both pursue high levels of success in our chosen professions. And these are two blue-collar folks that came from nothing. So they're my biggest inspirations.
I love that. Mom and Dad. It's fitting. And I'm sure, what's Dad's first name?
His name was Bob.
Bob. And your mom?
Joanne.
So shout out to Joanne. Shout out to Bob, because I know you can hear us up there.
Right.
And, I think I'm sorry that he's not here, but you know and I know in our faith that he is.
That's right.
So, and how do you see your dad? Do you see your dad in certain things? Something happen and it kind of makes you feel like he dropped you a little nugget that day?
Yeah, my dad was my biggest fan. I played 3 sports in high school. He was worked for the New York Telephone Company, so a lot of Saturdays when I had football games, he'd be working, but he had a telephone truck. He'd park off in the distance. I'd see the telephone truck. He was my first baseball coach, was always at my baseball games. I played baseball in college. I went away to St. Bonaventure. It was a long haul for them to get 5-6 hours away, so they didn't get a chance to watch me play a lot in college, but when they were there, he was always so proud, and I know that he's proud now. I was the SID, the assistant at Army from 1987 till 1995. I was named the SID in 1995. 6 months later, he was diagnosed with cancer, and he was gone 6 months after that. So he didn't really get a chance to enjoy that. At that point, had risen to the highest level of what at the time was going to be my chosen field. He would come to every game that I worked, every football game, every basketball game, every baseball game, whatever it was, he was there. And he was proud, and I know that he's proud looking down at what we were able to accomplish at West Point and now at LeMoyne. So he's with me in spirit. I know he's with me every single day. I see his face every single day in almost every action that I do, and I'm blessed to have my mother with me still in very good health. So I know that she's with me as well.
Shout out to Bob and Joanne. And with that being said, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, our final note that I would like to make to each of you out here is to make sure that you are with us in Dolphin Time Wednesdays on Wake Up Call at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, 80 and DT the first and third Wednesday with Bob Beretta and myself, Dan Tortora, and the Dolphin Dive with student athletes, coaches, and administration on the second and fourth Wednesdays of each month. So every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time is Dolphin Time, AD and DT, and the Dolphin Dive. And of course, a final note here that Bob and I always like to throw at you is fins up.
Fins up, Dan.
So we appreciate it. Thank you so much for everybody that's here at Cafe Kubal and everybody that's come through. And we definitely appreciate having you here and all the Cafe Kubals from this location at Sweetheart Corner on the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road in North Syracuse, the newest location and the first ever drive-through, to 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, inside of Golisano's Children's Hospital, where they're doing great work and performing miracles every day, we hope, for the kids and their families right in downtown Syracuse, and of course on 401 South Salina Street, 208 North Townsend Street, and 3501 James Street. So we thank Cafe Kubal, Matt Goddard, and the team. We thank LeMoyne College. I thank all my listeners as well as viewers and readers on wakeupcalldt.com, and let you know one final note here as we give an appreciation to everybody that's been a part of this, as I want to not only thank LeMoyne, but thank our Central and Upstate New York partners, Cafe Kubal, Carvel DeWitt, the Wildcat Sports Pub, Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, Chick-fil-A Cicero and Chick-fil-A Clay, Avicoli's, Canine Camp Dog Daycare, PB&J's Lunchbox, Von Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, Mother's Cupboard, Canine Campground Dog Boarding, the Millhouse Market, Pizza Man, Honda City of Liverpool, and Progressive Dental. And let you know that Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora is live Monday through Friday, from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. We went a little longer today for you, under promise and over deliver. YouTube.com/wakeupcalldt, Facebook.com/wakeupcalldt, Facebook.com/livenowdt. 3 places to watch and 2 places to listen. MixLR.com/wakeupcalldt and on wakeupcalldt.com. And of course, you could search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on Stitcher, TuneIn, Podbean, iHeartRadio, Spotify, MixLR, YouTube, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts any day of the week, any hour of the day, and get us there. So with that being said, Bob, thank you so much for being a part of it. Shout out to LeMoyne. Fins up as always. And thank you for remembering 9/11, speaking on your family, giving us some background from Army, and for all that you do for the community and everything you have done.
Well, thank you, Dan. I appreciate the opportunity. Pleasure being with you, and look forward to our continued partnership. It's been more than we could have hoped already, so I look forward to the weeks and months ahead.
Looking forward to it very much so. So shout out to all of you. Have a great day. Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, Twitter at Call DT, and Instagram at Wake Up Call _DT. And you know there's 3 things I leave you with every day. God bless, no stress, do your best. I'll talk with you soon. Don't ever let anybody change your day unless it's